Changed.
Welcome to the Sturbridge Conservation Commission meeting for June 15th, 2021, 6 p.m. For those of you who would like to join us, we are in Veterans Memorial Hall upstairs in the Sturbridge Town Hall, 308 Main Street, Sturbridge, Mass. So we are here and we are live. This meeting of the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance and/or participation is being provided to the public, the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technological interruptions occur in the broadcast, unless otherwise required by law. Put that in there. Members of the public with particular interest in the specific item on this agenda should make plans for an in-person and virtual attendance accordingly. All right. Members of the public who wish to participate remotely excuse me, may listen and/or watch the meeting, may do so either online via the town's on-demand video broadcast, on cable television at 191, or dial into the meeting at 774-304-1455. Enter 1428 pound for the meeting number and 12345 for the access code. That being said, we have a quorum of the entire board is here, and it is excuse me, 6 o'clock. So actually, Becky, you have anything you want to do between now and 05?
Do you want to do committee updates?
Sure.
Quick.
I'm going to have to get a drink of water. Dave, why don't you do a community update for the trails?
We haven't had a Trails Committee meeting. The Trails Committee meeting last Thursday night was postponed as a result of problems in getting a meeting room, and so they will be meeting this Thursday night.
Yeah. Yeah. We met, CPC met at the town meeting, before the town meeting, because there was an issue on the Fiscal property that we had to resolve, but we weren't able to do it because we didn't have a quorum, so it just went to the moderator, and it was done that way. And that was the only thing we had on the agenda, that's it. Anything on the leaks?
Apparently not.
No?
It's been the most active board I've ever been part of.
All right.
How about the minutes? We motion to approve
Yep.
the minutes of June 1st.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, sorry. Yeah?
David and I will second it.
I would take, oh, thank you. Okay, you can get me.
Hard whiskey or something.
I'll take one.
Are you serving water? I want that woman to get a raise.
This is purely allergies. I have no.
I'm fully vaccinated. I'm completely comfortable sitting here anyway. I'm good now.
How do you grow into your 70s and get allergies? I don't understand that. Never had them as a kid.
I don't know.
Thank you.
Every dog and cat and everything that you.
I have heard, though, COVID is exacerbating underlying issues, so maybe you had it at one point. Now you got it.
Great.
Yeah.
Thanks for the help there.
Sorry.
Good news.
All right, so we have a second.
Have a second?
Yep.
Yes,
Any discussion? Any corrections?
nicely done.
All in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
Steve Haldeman in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Ed Goodwin in favor?
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Great.
You still have to do that.
All right.
All right, we still have a minute here, so do you want to do number 13, administrative decisions, wetland protection fund use for fiscal year 2022? Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so historically, we've been using our wetland protection fund to fund a portion of the administrative assistant salary. Last year, we had upped it to 10 hours a week. We've gone back down to 5 hours with the other 5 coming out of the general fund now. So we're not going down on hours. It's still funded as a 30-hour-a-week position, so it's still a part-time position. We've just switched how the amount of money that was coming out of the Wetland Protection Fund, so there wasn't as much coming out of there. So this year, I'm asking to vote and approve the use of $5,544 from the Wetland Protection Fund for the administrative assistant salary for fiscal year 2022.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve of $5,144 from the Wetland Protection Fund to be used during fiscal year 2022.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
I think it's 5,540.
44, 5,544.
Yeah, I didn't have it.
As corrected.
You can make it more, but you can't make it less. No.
Let's make it more.
Any discussion on that, other than the accuracy of it? Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
David Barnacle in favor.
Steve Halderman in favor.
Stephen Chittister in favor.
Eric Gaspar in favor.
Ned Goodman in favor. Now, we can just go back to our hand raising now?
Good.
Right.
Becky, what does that bring our
Yeah.
Wetland Protection Fund to at the present time?
The dollar amount in there?
I have to get back to you on that.
Yeah, I don't know offhand. Historically, it was staying around because we were constantly putting funds in for the wetland protection reviews, notice of intents, and
So it
RAD.
stays about 90,000?
Well, it's been about 80, I would say, in that general area.
Okay, that's good enough. Thank you.
Just as a point of order, since you brought it up, since this was advertised as a hybrid meeting, probably this meeting, we should continue with announcing our names, and then do we go back to normal, starting with the next meeting?
The executive order is gone.
It's all- Yeah.
You can vote any way you would like,
Yeah,
but there's no requirement for calling your name and voting.
okay,
Yeah.
all right,
So it's up to you all how you conduct your meetings at this point.
okay, all right, cool. I don't need to say my name. I love the sound of it, though.
Why don't I say it for you?
Okay, there you go, perfect.
Nicely done, Eric.
Thank you,
All
Steve.
right, now that Eric is through, public hearings, let's go to 6:05, Sturbridge Conservation Commission regulations changes. This is part of the town's codification project. Becky?
Yep, so this is a public hearing for ourselves. We did post a legal ad and have proof of legal ad posting for this. This is something that you've looked at before, so just as a reminder and for information for people watching, that the town recently undertook a project to recodify our bylaws and supporting regulations. We've had a draft, a red line draft available that we've had posted on the website. It was approved at town meeting on June 7th, 2021. You've reviewed the changes previously. Most of the changes are just administrative changes. The only thing of more substance was that we took the actual fee amount out of the regulations. That was a recommendation from the company who worked on this project for the town. That way, when the board does look at changing fees, we don't have to go through the formal regulation process. So I do have a copy of the regulations red line draft here. Like I said, I did post it on the town website. My recommendation, I would wait a few minutes and see, we'll check the public line in the audience. I would recommend to approve those.
All right. During that, why don't we check the public line now?
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak on the regulation
Okay.
changes for the Sturbridge Conservation Commission?
Oh, okay.
Is there anyone on the public line?
Yes, hi, this is Richard Weatherby with the Tantasco Regional School District.
Oh, hi, Rick, how are you?
Very good, Becky, how are you?
Good, good. We're not at your public hearing yet. We're just getting through this first one, but we
Yeah.
should be right at it, okay?
Okay, I just wanted to let you know I was online. so,
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah.
I've been notified that Mr. Haldeman is slacking his job. Would you please go ahead and read the,
Mr. Halton is at the, yes. In the interest of saving time, the Sturbridge Conservation Commission will hold all public hearings tonight for work within a wetland, water body, or resource area and/or within a 200-foot buffer zone to a wetland, water body, or resource area in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL, Chapter 131, Section 40, and associated regulations, and the Town of Sturbridge Wetland bylaws and associated regulations. We will not be reading the newspaper ads. Prior to opening the first hearing of each project, the applicant is to submit proof of notification to abutters within 200 feet of the subject property line and proof of legal newspaper advertisement. If these items are not submitted, the public hearing will not open. Additionally, prior to the start of each public hearing, we will announce the location of the project, the applicant, and the applicant's representative. If any visitors have not legibly signed in yet, please do. Also, if any visitors are recording this meeting, please let us know. Thank you.
Do we have a place for Dave to sign in?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Are you recording this, Dave?
all right, we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right. Motion to approve the codification project as set forth. Do I
So
have that?
moved.
Yeah, okay. And a second.
Yes.
Second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Good. All right. Becky, do you want to move to Holland Road to get Mr. Peterkin?
Well, we have someone on for the next hearing. and
Oh,
then
okay.
We can do it right after that.
All right, fine.
I turn up.
So we are at 360A Brookfield Road. It's an RDA for parking lot improvements. The applicant is Tantascwa Regional. Represented is Rick Weatherby, seeking extermination. Go ahead,
Mr.
Becky.
Chairman, it's for the junior high.
Okay, it says Tantascwa Regional. You want correct it to the junior high? Okay,
Yeah, it's the right address, so,
yeah.
There they are.
yeah. All right, well, I'll just start off and give a quick summary of this, and then I can let Mr. Weatherby add anything in that he wants. Would you like me to put up, we have a plan from the 70s when the junior high was built. I added it with the detailed agenda, so you can see it, it's kind of colored where the wetlands were on there, with the existing wetlands, not the previous wetlands, and then where the drainage structures were associated with the parking lot. Do you want me to put that up? Do you feel like you need to see that?
Yeah,
or-
please, we've got the time, let's do it quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, actually, this is an aerial photo, but I can pull that plan up too. Do you need me to zoom in, or?
Yeah, I'd zoom in just a hair.
Okay. So, like I said, this is fairly rough here. This is just, let's see it go like that. Can't really see, there's a stream on the bottom part of the plan there. So this is a request for determination of applicability. What they're doing is they're removing all of the asphalt, all of the parking surfaces and driveways. Oh, Rick, do you want to, I think that's Rick's mic.
Yep. Yeah, sure. Yes, again, my name is Rick Weatherby. I work for the Tantascwa School District, and I'm the applicant for this RDA. I'm here tonight just to request and ask for approval to move forward with a paving project that we plan on doing at the Tantascwa Junior High School. The work involved is to reclaim and then repave all asphalt areas on the property. In no way we're going to be disrupting any wetland or foliage of wetland. It's just all work that's on existing asphalt. And we went out to bid on this, and the company that was awarded the bid was Ondrick Materials and Recycling out of Chicopee, Mass. And the planned start date for this is June 28th.
Okay, thank you, Rick. So just to
You're welcome.
add into that, so it's in RDA, there's no expansion of the paved surfaces, there's no encroachment on resource areas. It's not an exempt activity pursuant to the Wetlands Protection Act. There are exemptions for repaving single-family house driveways and roadways with limitations, but it doesn't apply to commercial parking lots or anything. So not exempt, but it's more of just something that requires BMPs during work. I would recommend and include, I would recommend approval through a negative number 3, because it won't alter resource area with the conditions that we add, and then a positive number 5, subject to local bylaw with the same conditions. So I would recommend that all drainage structures are protected during work. So on this plan, you can see I highlighted with the pink here, the drainage lines with the catch basins. So there's quite a few catch basins, and I kind of traced where those go. They all discharge to resource area. So it is important that things like silt sacks are installed during the catch basins. So that way, if once they've done the reclamation work and they haven't paved yet, and we have a storm event, that we're not, discharging turbid water into resource area. And then also, that we work out in a few of the areas where it's closer to wetlands, that we have sedimentation controls put in place, either straw wattles with or without, why can't I think? Silt fence, entrenched silt fence there too. So, and I think that's something that, I didn't really mark where that would go on here, that we can kind of work out where those areas are. With that, obviously, we'd have conditions in there about any stockpiling, if that's needed, some of the standard things that we add in with the permits for work.
All right. David, any comments?
I don't have comments, I have a couple of questions. First of all, is the current driveway going to be ground up and reused, or is it simply going to be paved over?
No, the project plan is to reclaim, which means the company, Ondrick, would be grinding up to about 10 inches of depth, and then putting a base down, and just check and make sure all grades are correct. And then we would be putting a 2-inch base asphalt, and then a 1.5-inch top coat on top of that.
Beautiful. Does this plan also include any sidewalks?
The sidewalk around the school is part of the plan. That's correct.
No, I'm talking about a sidewalk going down to Route 148.
They're already working on that, yeah.
Yeah, that's on a separate permit number, but that is probably, they just installed all of the erosion control today on that project.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So did we have that before us already? We did, didn't we?
I spoke to you about it, Ed.
Yeah. Yep. All right.
I think with the conditions that the agent has included in this, I think it's fine.
Okay.
I agree.
I agree.
I'm good.
Okay. Do we have a motion to close the public? Oh, go to the public, Beck.
Good evening, is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak on the 360A Brookfield Road RDA for parking lot improvements? Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 360A Brookfield Road RDA? Nobody.
Thank you, Aaron. Hearing none, motion to close the public hearing.
I move we close the public hearing.
Second?
Eric seconds it. Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome. Thank you,
Good
Ed.
job, Eric.
Any discussion? All in favor? All right. So, do I have a motion?
I move we accept the RDA with a -3 and a +5, and the conditions that are listed by the agent.
For 360 Brookfield Road.
360 Brookfield Road, thank you.
Second.
I'm sorry,
Discussion.
360A.
360A, the junior high.
Yes, that's all in my
Yep.
motion. Thank you for all the help.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? How did you vote, Eric, on that?
I voted yes.
Excellent.
All right, thank you, Rick. I'll be drafting out a
You're welcome.
letter in your determination, and we'll send that out in the mail and email that to you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Rick.
Bye-bye.
We are now at 6:15 PM, 134 through 148 Lake Road, request to amend the OOC DEP file number 300-1067, addition of pavement to the Lake Road.
But, Mr. Chairman, we had indicated after we had the person on the phone come in that we were going to take care of the person who's in the audience?
This one's just a continuation, so since you already,
We'll continue this then.
Yeah.
You're right, but we're just going to
You did.
continue this because I started it, okay?
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so for this public hearing, we did receive a written request for a continuation. The project engineer is reviewing the stormwater analysis to see if, paving this now, what they've already implemented. They already implemented this project. We approved this last year. They put it in this. If what's been implemented for stormwater BMPs would be sufficient for picking up that extra flow from the pavement. So we're waiting to have that reviewed and come back to us. So they did ask for a continuation request on that. So we'll have that at the next meeting on July 20th.
Any discussion on that? All in favor of continuation? All right, that's good, Becky. I am jumping to 70 Holland Road, which is number 12 on your sheet. Wetland bylaw letter permit by David Peterkin. Becky, have any?
Yep. Yeah, if you want to come up, if they have any questions, you get a mic up here. But I can start out for you, David. So this is a wetland bylaw letter permit. Mr. Peterkin owns property at 7 Holland Road. I can pull it up on the GIS. Some of you are familiar with it. We've been there before. He has a very long driveway that he is going to reclaim. They're going to tear that up. It's paved and repave that. There's no expansion of footprint of the driveway. So that would meet exemptions under the Wetlands Protection Act. However, it is right next to, we have a very large wetland system and a stream there. So it is subject to the local bylaw. I would recommend approval of that. And since it is a pretty big project, just to add some BMPs, some stormwater BMPs, erosion controls, down at the bottom of his property near resource areas. So that way, if we do get into these flashy summer storms that we've been getting, there's protective measures in place to make sure it doesn't end up in the resource area.
All right. Dave, any comment?
No, I have no comment.
No. Any discussion?
Do we have a plan that shows the BMPs and,
No, I actually said that I'd work that out with him to cite where those should be down. I mean, we talked about it when he came into the office, about where we would put those. But I just figured it'd be easier to go on site and kind of work that out with him, so.
Well, because of the slope, you only need to have that protection right at the very base,
Exactly.
just
yeah.
before coming out
Yeah.
onto Holland Road anyway.
Yep, and both sides of the driveway, so.
So,
All right.
I don't quite understand, you're gonna come out before I place the protection? Or am I just gonna place the protection and then you're gonna come?
Well, so typically, right, we see it first where exactly it's gonna go, and I'll come out and check to make sure it's secure. But I can come out and cite the location of those specifically with you.
Okay.
If that's helpful,
Because
so.
it's supposed, the construction's supposed to start on Monday, so,
Okay, we can work that out.
all right, good.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? This is just a letter permit. All right. Thank you, Dave.
All right, thank
Do
you.
you have a permit for raising those beaver you got in there?
It's been an interesting 30 years or so. Been there, that's for sure.
Yeah, but think about the ease with which you'll be able to access your house in the rotten weather, Dave.
Plowing is it'll be much less of a headache than it minutes now.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care, Dave.
Yep. Okay, Becky, we are now to Bennett's Road.
Yep.
62059 Bennett's Road, NOI, raise and rebuild single-family home, septic system, well, and associated site work. DEP file number is 300-1103.
All right, so did speak to the engineer, and I received a written request for an extension or continuance on this. They're still waiting. The Board of Health meeting, I believe he said, is next week. Tomorrow? Monday, yeah, this coming Monday. So they need to go through that process first to see if what revisions there will be, and then they'll come back to us at July 20th. So they're asking for continuance to our next meeting of July 20th.
All right. Any discussion on the extension? Seeing none, all in favor? All right. We are now to 625. We had 28 Camp Road and 704 Main Street. Should we take the 704 Main Street out of that, Becky?
Yes, we are going to have to take that out now.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that was the recommendation.
NOI, construction of a new single-family home and associated site work. DEP file number 300-1101. Virgil Van Guren and Mark Farrell is not going to be here?
I saw him today, and he said he was going to log into the meeting. I don't see him on here, though.
I'm on the phone.
Oh, he's on that. Oh,
I hear him.
Good evening, Mark.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Hi, Mark. All
I
right.
tried to log in on the other on the live one, but I couldn't seem to get in. So I called in.
All right.
Mark, do you want to go over, I'm going to pull up the plans. Do you want to go over the revisions of the project?
Sure. Basically, what we did is originally the original filing was a road, a driveway that would continue on the main street, and we've eliminated that from this project. We'll revisit that one down the road as a separate filing. Below the area he's working is that cart path where the spring was located, and then it kind of drains down through the cart path. So we proposed some enhancements down in there by just to slow down the erosion and to prevent all-terrain vehicles and motorcycles from traversing in there. So we put a couple of boulders, proposed putting a couple of boulders that would prevent access around that curved area there where the drainage way is. Within that drainage way, just put some small riprap just to slow the water down. If you remember what happens, it kind of comes out of that spring and then drains into that roadway, and it's kind of eroded I shouldn't say roadway, probably more like a cart path, eroded the soil, and then it kind of flows down to the head of that small vegetated wetland down below, and it ponds there and then kind of flows into wetland. So there is some erosion in there, so propose putting some small rocks in that eroded channel there just to slow the water down and to try to prevent further erosion from occurring there. It was a hole that he had dug, and we're proposing to fill that back in and replant it with some native vegetation. The area that they had put some bark mulch. Becky, are you able to point where that is on the plan at all, or?
Yep, so, I don't know if you can see my cursor here.
Right.
And I can zoom in more, I know you're not that close to it. So that's the area of previous excavation, and they're gonna propose to fill that with clean fill, plant 1 red oak and 5 mountain laurel, and spread ragged mulch on top of the exposed soil. So that was kind of for the few that we went out, we had to kind of walk around over that. So they'll restore the buffer zone there. And then he has another little restoration area. I have 2 plans, so I'll have to pull up the other one to show where the barn is when you get to that part, Mark. But there's another proposed restoration area over here, red oak and the mulch here as well.
Is that colored plan on OneDrive? I didn't see it in there. Or is
No, because I didn't have
Oh.
it done yet, so yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
Just the regular plans were there, but not the colored ones.
I saw it somewhere.
And then for when the single-family home proposed putting a dry well in front of the house to infiltrate. The house is over outside the 100-foot buffer, but within the 200-foot buffer to Sturbridge, and proposed to put a dry well in there to help facilitate some more infiltration for the site. And I think that was, so there's some, since we met prior, there's some, some enhancements that are, try to help stabilize the site a little more and to, enhance some infiltration.
I saw that somewhere. I think that was on the
You probably saw the old colored plan there.
She had it separate.
So I'll switch to the second plan sheet, and this one has the barn on it.
Yeah, and he's proposing to put a barn. If you remember that area where they had put some fill they had removed from the driveway, it's at the top of that. So it's kind of in a previously disturbed area, but it's outside the 50-foot buffer, and below it would remain some vegetation. It's in excess of the 25-foot no disturb zone. I think it's probably about 40 feet, maybe, if I remember correctly. Below undisturbed vegetation would be below the barn.
All right. Comments, Becky?
Yes, let me find my comments.
So the barn is actually the only, the house and the driveway, most of that work is outside the 100-foot buffer. I would say that the garage is the only, structure that would be within 100 feet of the, the wetland. Everything else is outside. There's some work within the buffer zone, but that would be the only structure that would be located within 100 feet of any wetland on the site.
Beck, anything?
Yep. Yeah, so, Mark went over some of the things that were included in my staff notes. They took off the 704 Main Street property off of this, which would have been a driveway through there. So some of the things that are shown on this plan that we didn't see before includes the proposed barn, the house stormwater runoff infiltration, the restoration work for where they encroached within buffer zone. We asked him to show the buffer zones, all of the buffer zones in the plan from all resource areas, which he added. Right, and then it has, in addition to everything that was already there, the single-family house, the driveway, septic well, et cetera. So the restoration work includes restoring the buffer zone impacts and the restoration of that hydrologic channel. So what we think is that probably before, previous past lane clearing activities prior to this property owners buying it, kind of diverted that spring that we had seen was connected to that bordering vegetated wetland down below. That was altered, so it's kind of found that path of least resistance there down the cart road, but it does have some signs of erosion. So I think it would be beneficial to add some stones in there. I wouldn't recommend riprap, but some varied boulders, natural boulders in there to kind of help reduce some of that erosion in there. I think that would be beneficial. And then the boulders kind of blocking that cart path so any, ATV activity doesn't go into the resource area would be good. Site was reviewed for additional wetlands. There are a couple different wetlands on site that are over 200 feet away, so they're not shown on the plan. They come back with anything in the future, obviously those would be jurisdictional. I was waiting on the bordering vegetated wetland data sheets that are required. I did get those today, so I have everything that was required to be submitted to move forward. If you're content with the hearing, I'd recommend that you approve it and issue orders of conditions. With that would be our standard orders of conditions, conditions that we include. I'd recommend that landscaping plantings are installed in compliance with the approved plans and have a survival rate of 75% after 2 growing seasons. Condition for perpetual maintenance of the stormwater BMP structures. And then I'd recommend professional oversight for the channel restoration work to occur in the dry, and no riprap, and no equipment within resource areas.
Okay. David, any comments?
Mark, I'm curious, how did you come up with the location for the barn?
That is kind of a natural place to put it. He didn't want it right next to his house, and there's already kind of a cleared area going up to it, and it's kind of a gentle approach to it. If he pushes it any further up, I mean, there's steeper grades to get up to it.
Yeah, but what about where it's located? Could you not move it further back by maybe 15 feet?
You could probably move it 15 feet. Why do you want to move 15 feet?
It looks like it's still within the 100-foot buffer zone, and if we moved it a bit, it could get out of the 100-foot buffer zone as well as the 50.
Well, you could probably move it 15 feet.
And my second question is, what is the composition going to be of the dry well? You know, dry wells have a whole variety of connotations.
Say that again, Dave. I couldn't quite hear that.
My question is, what is going to make up the dry well? Because I'm worried.
The dry well?
Yeah, the word dry well can come to a whole bunch of things. I know guys that dig a hole in the
Well,
backyard.
I would put a concrete pit in there and surround it with stone, and then a shallow pit, and then put the 2 roof leaders into it.
So what about drainage from that dry well?
What about drainage?
Do you have an overflow? Do you need an overflow pipe?
Yeah.
Well, we could design an overflow to it so that it just would come on top of the ground if it overwhelmed the dry well. But I think what's that?
The concern, Mark, is that even recently we've had a 2-inch storm. And the 2-inch storm took place in only about 3 hours.
Frequency of it. Well, they could just leave a 4-inch pipe to grade that would, or stone right up to grade, and then if it overwhelmed the dry well, it would just spill on top of the ground. So the dry well would take, an average storm, and then if it was something that was fast and furious, it would just overflow. But that's going to be the case with any sort of subsurface infiltrative device, is that there are going to be some storms that it's going to overwhelm.
But wouldn't it be better to have it a controlled flow rather than just sheet flow?
Controlled flow, what do you mean by that?
In a pipe leaving the dry well, as opposed to letting it simply flow over the edges of the dry well, which might end up in the water going back down along the edges of the dry well, and therefore eroding all the way around it and causing us a problem in the future.
Well, probably I would say that if he just let that water escape and let it go overland flow, I don't think at that point there'd be enough water that would cause erosion. It's relatively flat down there, so I think it would just kind of pond on the soil and run across the top of the soil. The only way you could dissipate it more would be, I don't know, I mean, it would be, it's not going to be any worse than just having your downspouts directed onto the ground, the amount of water coming out of them.
I guess my whole point, Mark, is that I feel that it would be better to have any overflow carried away from the dry well as opposed to having the possibility of coming in between the sidewalls of the dry well and the open ground, because ultimately that's going to result in a loosening of the soils around the dry well and causing a problem in the future.
Yeah, well, he could just dig an overflow trench, possibly, just so that up high along the dry well, so that the trench, and put a pipe in there and pipe and stone and just let it, find its way down the trench.
Is that what you agreed to do?
Yeah, we can do that.
So would you like them to provide a detail of the dry well structure and overflow?
Just as part of the final.
I'm sorry, Becky, I didn't catch that.
Oh, I was just asking them if they'd like you to
Yeah,
provide a
yeah.
final detail
Nope.
of that to be included.
Yeah.
He has to show the.
I think a concrete structure with stone all the way around it would maximize the amount of water that could be infiltrated. And then we could certainly just put something up high there that if the water level got high in there, before it backed up in the pipes and up the downspouts, it would allow the water to get on the ground. I could certainly come up with a detail that would do that and not cause any erosion, and would give the water another chance to infiltrate back into the ground.
I think that would be an improvement, Mark.
Okay, we can do
Thank
that, yep.
Steve? I don't have any problem with the original plans at all, but I'm just one person.
Stephen,
Yeah, I'm fine with this.
with the plan?
Yep.
Eric?
No, I'm fine with the plan.
The only question I had, I'm fine with the plan. I like the idea of moving the barn, outside the 100, which you have agreed to. Is this plan, Becky, have we got all the ingredients of this plan with all the changes there have been and everything? Is the actual plan written up to include just this, location and
Right,
so forth and so on? Has it been updated?
right, well, that's what this,
Seems like we're doing it here.
huh?
No,
Oh, well, this is the revised plan except for what was asked for this evening. So, right, everything's been changed, so that way we're just looking at what's
Yeah.
on 28 Camp, and the permit would reference that, wouldn't reference anything on the 704 main.
all right.
I guess just to be clear, what plans are you guys, I'm saying that the original plan is okay with me.
Right,
The level spreader out of the dry well and all that, I'm fine with.
right.
So, and you guys, where are you in agreement with the original plan and moving the barn?
I just wanted to make sure that they didn't have the other location that was originally on the plan, on this plan.
Main Street part.
Yeah, the Main Street part. And I would like to see the barn moved outside the 100. Other than that, I'm happy with the plan, personally. Steven?
Yep.
Eric?
Yeah, I agree with you, Ed.
So for complete clarity, we're saying that the dry well, as it stands, actually functions as a level spreader, which is what we really oftentimes shoot for.
Right.
Now, I'm saying that that is okay with me, and I'm sure my buddy here will not mind me disagreeing that the pipe and all that
Yep.
is probably cause more of a problem than a level spreader, which is what that dry well should act as if it overflows. Be sheet flow and maybe, like Dave said, maybe some stone on the downside of that.
Okay. Aaron, could we see if anybody in the audience would like to speak to this?
Good evening, is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 28 Camp Road notice of intent for construction of a new single-family home and associated site work? Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to 28 Camp Road, notice of intent?
Thanks, Aaron. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
Seconded by Eric. Any discussion? All in favor? Do I have a motion to approve the project?
Yeah, motion to approve DEP file number 300-1101 with the agent's notes, with the one exception of moving the barn outside of the 100-foot buffer zone.
Do I have a second to that?
I'll second it.
Further discussion?
So that means leaving the dry well the way that it's on the plan.
Yes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? 5. Becky? Approved, Mark.
Okay, great, thank you very much. I'll revise those plans and get them to Becky.
All right. So now we're on to Walker Road.
Oh, Mark, back to
Mark back. 238 Walker Road, notice of intent, construction of a new single-family and associated site work. DEP file number 300-1100. All right.
All right, so this is a continuation. It was originally continued from May 4th to address the commission's comments, revised plans, and they needed to file the notice of intent with the endangered species program because it's within priority habitat and estimated habitat. So we did, at one of the previous meetings, did start to go over the revised plan, but we were still waiting for natural heritage comments. So on the screen is the revised plan. We've received comment from Natural Heritage. They issued a no take and no adverse impact to wetland resource area. So we're all set with Natural Heritage. So what was done was the revised plan, he had shifted the limit of work as we had requested, and you can see now that the limit of work is at the 50-foot buffer zone. So the well was moved up and a portion of the yard as well. And I was waiting on the BVW data sheets, which I received at this time. So as far as approval of the project, since we've received that information since the detailed agenda, you can move forward. If you don't have any concerns, you can vote on the project. So I would recommend, I think they've addressed everything that was asked of them. If you approve it, I'd recommend the standard orders of conditions that we have for construction. It wouldn't appear that there'd be any perpetual conditions required for any stormwater structures, as we don't have one on here. So I don't know if you would like to add one or not. We didn't discuss that last time. And that's about it.
So you're recommending that we approve the project?
Yes, yep.
Okay. David?
No questions.
I'm good with it. Stephen?
Nope, I appreciate the changes.
Yeah. Eric?
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you, Mark, for working with us. I think it's a good project.
Welcome.
And I'm in conjunction, why don't we see if anybody in the audience wants to speak to this?
Good evening, is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 238 Walker Road, notice of intent for a construction of a new single-family home and associated site work? Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 238 Walker Road, notice of intent?
Hearing none, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
All right. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? All right. Do I have a recommendation from the board?
Yeah, make a motion to approve DEP file 300-1100 with the agent's notes and appropriate conditions.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion? Any discussion at all? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor? Unanimous? Thanks, Mark. You win again.
2 for 2, Mark. Tell your friends.
That's not bad, and I can go back to dance. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
You too. I knew he was at a dance.
Good for him. All right, now. Walker Road, and we are now on 6:40 time, 122 Main Street, notice of intent, redevelopment of a gas station / convenience store, DEP file number 300-1093. Becky?
Great, so from the last meeting, we had the peer review report provided, and there was given an overview of that report at the time. I've spoken to the project engineer. They were reviewing that, and they just submitted their revised documents and comments to that on Monday. So I've sent that over to the peer reviewer to take a look at, but we don't have a comment back from them yet because we only received it yesterday. So I did have some correspondence with the project engineer today, and they did ask for a continuation to allow staff, yourself, and the peer reviewer to look at all those materials. So they did ask for a continuance to our next meeting.
All right. So we're being asked for continuation.
Correct.
Any discussion? No? All in favor of a continuation? Becky? It's unanimous? All right. We are at 6:50 time. We are at 30 Main Street and 20 Fiscal Road. Continuation of a notice of intent, development of a residential and commercial cul-de-sac, subdivision DEP file number 300-1086.
All right, so we do have the project engineer on go-to meeting, and I believe we have the applicant in the room. So Pete, I don't know if you want to start off and just give a summary?
Well, we also have attendees. Is there anything they're going to be able to look at? Those
Yes.
people are.
Yep.
Picking out a hard copy?
Yes.
I have a good one here.
Huh? You want to put a big one out? All
Yeah.
right.
Why don't you give? Yeah.
Sure.
You want to come up and look at it there? All right, Matt, you want to start off?
Needs a mic.
Yeah, Peter, go. You ask Peter.
Yeah, Peter's
Okay,
on
I'm
here.
sorry.
Is there a microphone or do you not care?
Right here.
Well, you can share this one, Well, if you
Yeah,
want.
but we do care.
Vaccinated, Becky?
I know. Are you?
And had it too, we doubled down. Did you ask Peter a question? I didn't want to jump
I
in.
did. I didn't know if you wanted to start off and just kind of go over where you're at with the project since we've.
Yeah.
So we'll start with Peter then? Is that?
Well, I think Peter's definitely got some parts where I have to rely on Peter. Maybe the intro is not one of them though. I think we're in good shape as far as bringing the whole thing together. We had a lot of slowdown with the vernal pool study, which was productive in the sense that I didn't certify, but we identified a vernal pool that involves or is part of this phase 1 roadway. So I think we've got that. We got that box checked. It slowed us down a lot. We had to redo stormwater calcs that Peter absolutely has to talk to. I can't, I don't want to. But I feel like we're in good shape. You know, I think we've done everything. I did see Becky's recommendation of a continuance. I mean, I understand if some of the stuff has come in late in the game, but I would like to kind of just run through Becky, even if we end up with a continuance. It's very helpful for me to walk out of here with a full and complete understanding. One of the reasons is because we have not gone back to planning board. Planning board has sort of been trying to inch us into their meeting with a definitive plan, but that would have been possibly, not futile, but it would have gone backwards if we had made even small plan changes, road dimensions, anything like that to the plan, and then brought in a definitive plan to the PB. So we held off. We are scheduled with the planning board next Tuesday. I think we're in good shape with them. I think they are gearing up to approve a definitive plan. So as long as I can walk out of here with an understanding on the issues that Becky's presented on that detailed agenda, if the board is still not comfortable that we are where you wanted us to be, or Becky, then, you know, we can handle the continuance. I'd just like to only continue it if we really have to, you know, if there's a reason to do so. So from my perspective, the best thing we can do is probably go down through that list, but not my meeting.
All right. You want Peter next, or Becky, do you want to?
Peter can come in during the stormwater and MEPA stuff too. If that's on your list, if you want.
So, yeah, I guess I would just add that, right, we were waiting for the vernal pool study, but we were also waiting for plan revisions based off of Mass DOT comments. So there was a lot of revisions to the front of the road.
Good point.
That we were waiting on to find out from Mass DOT. So we're waiting for the vernal pool, we were waiting for drainage calculations to look at the isolated land subject to flooding. And that information from when we were out there, myself and Ecotech and the engineer and LEC, we were looking at the vernal pool boundary, because the whole wetland system doesn't function as the vernal pool there. There's a certain area that holds enough water, and that was delineated. So this is the first plan set we've seen that's reflect all of those changes.
And
so,
the culvert too, in the front.
Yeah, the culvert in the front.
Yeah.
So
DOT had to approve.
Right, DOT requires that. They don't allow structures to be connected to their drainage system, so they'd like to see that come out. There's an existing culvert there that's damaged, if I remember correctly, so they're proposing to take that out and kind of create a additional wetland area, stream channel in that section. So I went through, we provided the materials to Ecotech. Art replied with a letter, which you were provided with to see what his comments were. I went through that. He did note that that isolated land subject to flooding doesn't appear, based off of the information that the engineer submitted, to be a state jurisdictional wetland, but it would be jurisdictional under the local bylaw. My recommendation is if it is, then it needs to be added to the plans. That was one of the notes I added on there.
Hang on a second, Becky.
Yep.
Didn't he also, at the same time, suggest that those two wetlands actually were one wetland that were being fed by a consistent stream of water? And that, in fact, what he thought was that the soils that were blocking them, the buffer, should be removed so that it...
That's a different wetland. Yeah, there's another wetland where, based off of past and maybe some current activity when they're doing some exploratory out there, there was an old forestry road that went between two of the wetlands out there.
Correct.
And some additional disturbance they are proposing to take.
Has that change been reflected on the plans?
Yes, that's on the plans. Yep, they'd like to take that out. They're proposing to take that out and restore that as well. So, all right. So we were waiting for Park Corporation, that's our stormwater peer reviewer, to look at that. He did submit his response Monday morning. So that wasn't included with the detailed agenda in your packet. I did go through that this afternoon. It was the first chance I had to look at that. He did have, it's stormwater and traffic comments, so I think that the commission go through that. I have a couple questions for him on that. I'd like to have the opportunity to speak to him about that. Continuing with this, just just going through my notes here, so I talked
Can,
about.
can we just start, can we go back up, if you don't mind, to the isolated land
Sure.
area? That one concerns me, just because well, just to give you guys some history, especially Dave, because I think he's thinking there's enough wetlands on this site to go around and you sort of can get confused. This is just a small little area that was in Art had a picture of it in his original report from December, January, whatever it was, in winter. And it collected snow. And I have been back there, and this intrigued me. It was a spot that LEC, take you back to BSC a decade ago, did not identify it. LEC, our wetland scientist, did not identify it. Art said, hey, we should take a look at this site. It could be a wetland. Then they went back in April. He went back in April, and there was no water in it, and there were no wetland plants, and he specifically has now said, he's the third wetland scientist to say that this isn't a wetland. It's not a bordering vegetated wetland.
It's not an isolated vegetated wetland, but it still could qualify or does qualify under the local bylaws as isolated land subject to flooding.
Right.
That's what Art said in the report, yeah.
Well, what Art says is that by definition, it's not jurisdictional, I guess, to use the right jargon, per the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act. So, I get it. The reality is that the Sturbridge Wetland Bylaw has no lower limit for capacity. And just think about what I'm just saying there. I went there yesterday, after I saw Becky's comments. I took a picture of this area at 5:46 p.m. There wasn't a drop of rain. Everybody knows we got an inch of rain or whatever it was yesterday in buckets. I walked through a whole slew of puddles up a cart road to get there, but there wasn't a drop of rain or a drop of water that had ponded or pooled, zero in this area. And I took a picture of it for what that's worth, but I have been there probably a dozen times since Art's original pass through there. I do not believe that this little area, tiny area, that does not qualify under the Mass Wetland Protection Act is any kind of ponding area at all. I think it collected snow. There's a little depression. It's not deep. I just don't want to put it on the plan if it's not a wetland. Art specifically says he does not say it should be on the plan. He says that it does not qualify under the WPA, and since Sturbridge's bylaw has no lower limit to capacity, which means that as long as the commission tells me that you guys are going out and you're classifying essentially any small puddling area that collects water once a year without any lower capacity limits and putting it on, having applicants put it all over their plans, I'm okay. I don't think that's the case. How often are you guys using?
All right.
But
Okay, you've given your opinion. Thank you. All right, let's let it go at that for the time. What's the next one?
So my comment was the applicant is required to demonstrate that the project will not result in adverse impact on the resource area, including pool habitat. In addition, the project engineer should demonstrate that the project, in particular changes to drainage, will not adversely affect the on-site wetlands and the interests that they serve. The entirety of the roadway is proposed eventually to discharge to the C-series wetland. In addition, any future development on Lot 2 will also discharge stormwater to this wetland. With the increase of large precipitation events, the design systems could be of concern. The applicant should demonstrate how the volume of water, which is the discharge from the stormwater basin and rain garden, and the effects which that could present on the wetland. Increased flooding of the wetland could not only impact the functions of the wetland, but could also prevent flooding to adjacent developed house lots. This, with the addition of the stormwater system to be cited in Lot 2, could present a significant impact to the wetland and downstream areas.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously this is Peter Engel's
Go ahead, Brent.
expertise. Peter is on the call.
Yeah, Peter?
Can you hear me?
How you doing? Did you hear what Becky just read?
Yeah, I believe it was a comment about the
Can you comment?
demonstrating that we're not flooding. So basically, that's what the entire stormwater report concludes with. It's a 200-page document that shows that we're not increasing peak flows during a 2, 10, 25, 100-year storm. So the flooding thing, I mean, that's the point of doing the basin and detaining and attenuating peak flows is to prevent flooding. We also have to meet water quality, TSS removal, infiltration. We're meeting all the standards of the mass stormwater bylaws. According, you had a peer review these stormwater calcs. He agreed that the calcs are, and the analysis are what they should be, and that we're meeting the standards of the state and the town. So I'm not sure what else we would provide as far as flooding calcs when you have that in front of you.
So we can check with the peer reviewer. Like I said, his report wasn't submitted till Monday morning, so his comments were prior to that. So we can confirm that with him about the system.
All right.
The one thing I would just comment on with his report, like I said, I looked at it today, is that I would like to ask him about the 5 analysis points, just to confirm that those are sufficient analysis points for looking at this. I know that's going to be a question, where you look at, where you pull your analysis from. So I'd like to ask him about that, because he did point that out in his report, so.
Okay.
But like I said, we did not have his report until Monday morning, so my comments were prior to that.
Anybody have a comment on that point?
Were those 5 analysis points his or based on LECs?
Based on McClure Engineering.
Or
Yeah.
based on McClure?
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
And our engineer, who we asked for a peer review, didn't give an opinion on that? Whether it was efficient?
He didn't give an opinion on the location of them. He just said, with the new layout, the stormwater design still results in a decrease in peak runoff rate at the 5 analysis points. Also, the design of the basin exceeds the volume necessary for the 100-year storm. So I would just like to know, right, are those analysis points sufficient? He didn't comment on it, probably are, but that would just be a question I would have.
Well, I would hope that if we are paying a licensed engineer, that if it was a concern, that he would let us know.
Both their licenses are on the.
Right, so,
This was-
I don't know that I need additional clarification on that, because if it was, I would hope, based on his professional standards, if it was something that was alarming, it would be made of note in his report, so, that's just me.
Anyone else comment? All right, what's the next point? Becky?
Your documents here.
The applicant is required to demonstrate?
Yep, I just got to move my mic closer here.
Yeah.
The applicant is required to demonstrate that there are no practical alternatives to the proposed project with less adverse impacts on the protected resource areas and interests. This should be fully demonstrated. It would appear that there could be alternatives to developing both residential areas and commercial areas with less impact. The current layout of the road, the lots and the roadway would appear to present challenges to developing the lots and may create a self-imposed hardship for development of the lots in the future.
All right.
Yeah, just a comment on that.
Yeah.
So the MIPA process is a lot of that. So we went through MIPA. The certification, I think it's called, Becky, every time I screw up here, just please correct me, but MIPA gives you a certification, and
Certificate.
a certificate, okay. And she talks in pretty good detail about the analysis that we went through, that they asked us to go through. So you can see our ENR, is that what it's called?
ENF?
Your application essentially.
Right.
And then also the certificate. So we did a full-blown alternatives analysis through the MIPA process that I'm sure Becky has, or it's public. She was part of the.
I commented on it on behalf of the commission with
You have the
chair of the
analysis?
board. So that's all public information available on MIPA's website. I don't know that I specifically have hard copies of all of the MIPA documents that were submitted. But I think my reference was specifically towards the wetlands and buffer zone impacts.
And that's a lot of that. I mean, the MIPA question, I didn't, compare it word for word, but I mean, it's essentially the same line of questioning. So it certainly talks about alternative analyses for this project, or this property, for this property, this project, or others that would potentially be less invasive or intrusive.
So, well, I think that should be all a cohesive package submitted to the board as part of their application package.
And it's a simple, point and click. If you don't have that, full, complete thing, I just assumed you did because you were part of the MIPA thing, so.
Well, MIPA's
we can
separate,
work-
yeah.
We can work to, that's just point and click and send it to you. But, it's been done through MIPA is the upshot of that.
Can I just ask a question?
Go ahead.
I'm just curious, Matt, I don't know whether or not there are some self-imposed hardships for development of future lots, but just so you're aware, if they are,
Yeah.
from my stance and my seat, I don't look favorably upon people creating their own hardships, so that's something that you should be aware of.
Yeah, I appreciate that comment, and I don't think we're creating any. We wouldn't be purposefully doing so. There is a question, there's really, in my mind, only one question, and that is an off-site potential vernal pool. That it's been dammed. There's actually a dike there that prevents the water from, I'm not sure, I'm not a wetland scientist. But even with that buffer is shown on our plan. That's the only potential, Eric, area that I think could call in the whole hardship issue, the self-imposed hardship issue, and I'm comfortable with it.
Okay.
But I do appreciate the comment because it's something we looked at hard.
Sure.
All right, any other on that point?
There's 2 more points, too.
What?
Oh.
Yeah, the three more points. The next one, so the alternatives analysis that you've given to MIPA, you say is adequate?
I think it answers this exact question, Ed. I mean, obviously,
And does it go in further detail then, as far as what the plan is, than you've given us?
Yes. Well, it goes into, what it does is it goes into other options. We investigate other options.
No, I'm talking about the actual plan. Yeah, I understand the option part of it, but did you give MIPA a more detailed plan of what you're going to do?
We gave them a
You gave them a
conceptual-
cul-de-sac, and that was it.
We gave them a conceptual plan, and I hope you have all seen that conceptual plan. Becky has done that.
Go ahead, what, read it?
I'm just curious, we're going to take the owner's word for what MIPA had to say instead of reading what MIPA said.
Well, I haven't read it.
Yeah, we'll provide it. It's public information.
We weren't having that kind of a conversation, I don't think.
No, I hope not. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm happy to provide everything we gave to them and everything
Yeah.
they spit out, which was the certificate. Yeah.
Because, so the plan that you just said to me, that the plan that you gave them had further detail on it than the one we have.
I have to turn to Becky and ask her
Well, I think
the MIPA plan had a concept plan. Has this commission, the planning board has seen it?
I asked the question.
Yeah, no, I'm just not sure, Ed.
When the
If you-
MIPA review came through, I worked with, I think, Steve Halterman, you were in the MIPA meeting, Ed, I worked on a comment letter with those two on behalf of the board. So MIPA, everything you submitted to MIPA didn't go in front of the board.
Okay, so that's the only thing that exists.
So the commission's review was kind of put on hold when you had to do the vernal pool study and you had to go back to Mass DOT. So they haven't reviewed anything really since that time, because we were waiting on the revised
I
plan.
think I understand
So we're
Ed's
kind of
question.
coming back into the project.
I was being careful because I just don't know what you've seen and what you haven't seen.
No, I'm not.
The concept plan that MIPA had, we showed the planning board. I think you guys have seen it because it was a part of.
That plan there is the one we've seen. The one that they're looking at right over there. We haven't seen any
concept
additional plans.
MIPA requires you yes, so we have a concept plan. If you haven't seen it, that's only,
I think it was a long time ago when we were first discussing this project, we were going through MIPA. I think that concept plan was discussed at that time. I'd have to go back and look at that, but like I said, this whole thing's been on review while we've been waiting for the vernal pool study and the changes and DOT stuff.
Any other questions on that one?
My only comment is, yeah, I did sit in on that, virtually sat in on the MIPA meeting, and the MIPA person asked some really hard questions, some very good questions from the perspective of this board, this commission, and I would like to see the responses to those, and I haven't seen that yet.
yeah, no, Steve, I'm not versed in who sees what, when. I knew Becky and you were in the audience, and I assume that that's all just passed around, but the MIPA thing is, an open book, obviously. It's public knowledge, public information, but we'll provide everything we gave them as far as the application. It's called something else. I know it is, but the application and then the certificate itself that came out of MIPA.
The next one, Becky, a waiver?
So, yep, it appears that a waiver to the wetland bylaw setback requirements would be required. The applicant would be required by what's in the regulations to demonstrate that the waiver could be issued. That's section 1.1. A review of alternatives would appear necessary to issue a waiver. So it looks like there's a waiver to the 25-foot setback and the 50-foot no build required.
The 50-foot no build because of the
That's where I believe there's a stormwater structure that falls within that.
Okay.
Yeah, that was one of Parr's comments too.
The two areas in question were not part of our original plans. They were added, the parts that require the waiver were added because we've all come together now with Ecotech's assistance and determined collectively that we wanted the A and B series to be put back together from, I don't know how many decades, Dave, of being separated by that car path. That was, Ecotech's, I believe it was primarily Ecotech's recommendation, and then the culvert out front. So we're not actually asking for waivers of those of areas that pertain directly to the road. Those are two areas that are, I think we'd all classify them as enhancements. So those are the two waivers.
You're asking for a waiver to not put back,
To reconnect that wetland is going to require us to pull the cart path out.
that's what we're requesting, right?
Yes, so we need a waiver, though, of the 25-foot to do it.
And I think there's,
That's the waiver, so it's, yeah.
That's the waiver you're talking about, Becky?
That's
well,
one.
there's a stormwater structure within the no build
The
as
one,
well.
that's the one out front, Becky,
And the one out
that
front.
broken culvert thing
Yeah.
Right.
is number 2, which allows us to connect the broken culvert area, get that broken culvert out of there, patch up the old road problem.
Well, it's the large stormwater structure for the road would be within the 50-foot no build. That was one of the comments from the PAR review.
I can, that is that.
The, out front, our engineer felt that there had been wetland filling, and you marked 2 additional flags in that area.
Yep, by the culvert, by the broken.
Yeah, is there any plan, Becky, to do some borings to see the extent?
Not that I'm aware of.
Was that discussed?
Was that Phil?
Art flagged to put 2 flags out there, and I think after the commission site visit, I think that some of the members maybe had questions about that area, and I think that's what you're referring to.
I know it's a long time ago, so I'm not trying to correct you, but I think I'm right on this, that flag, there was a flag added exactly where you're talking about.
Well, it says
But I think
2 flags added in the.
Yeah, it brought it further out, that wasn't about filling questions. The fill question was the carpet.
Oh, it's a separate issue?
The carpet thing, and there's no question that some farmer, some number of decades ago, I don't know, centuries ago, whatever, he, disconnected those 2.
That isn't the suggestion that was made by Ecotech. They indicated that it was recent activity, obvious, and they perhaps indicated the possibility that it was while the forest cutting plan was being executed.
Yeah, Dave, Scout's honor, not us, nothing, that is.
No, but
old.
that's not centuries ago. That's what I'm pointing out.
No, there were, what he said, I think he said was that there were like tire rut marks kind of in that cart path. They did use the cart path. That cart path, though, has been there for a very long time. I'm not gonna speculate on how long. Whether somebody has crossed it, though, but believe me, I've seen that cart path now for 15, 18 years, whatever. It wasn't added to, subtracted from. There might have been tire marks. I didn't really see them, to be honest with you, but there was not new activity there that was,
Okay.
disruptive.
Becky, you want to do the last one? Staff recommend continuing public hearing?
Yep, I was gonna say just to address those comments. So I think what the bylaw regulations do say is if a waiver is needed, they need to request that and show that they meet the criteria. And part of that is that alternative analysis. And I would just recommend that it's specific towards the wetlands. The MIPA, I think, was a generalized overview too. So I think they need to show that they've explored that. And that way you can have that and move forward at that time on the project.
If it needs to be tweaked to be more focused, then we can do that. It won't be heavy lifting. I'm pretty sure that that's where it was directed.
Any comments?
Can I get one more bite of?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so back to the isolated. There's issues that we just, Peter is on the call still, he can tell you. My opinion, obviously, I won't try to express that again because you heard enough of that. But what are you guys doing with, like, I've got pictures of it, I can share them with you. I just don't think it deserves to be on the plan. In the final analysis, in the big picture of 140 acres, I am going to donate 65, 70 acres or whatever it turns out to be. I'm not saying that you should let me fill in 40 acres of wetland. I just don't know if something that is not defined as an isolated land area subject to flooding by the state's own Wetland Protection Act, we should stretch here just to capture it, for the sake of it. It's just, I don't know that it's necessary. And in the big picture, again, there's plenty of upland and wetland, valuable wetland areas that are going to be donated and permanently preserved. And I don't know, I'm not arguing, but I'll use that word. I don't know if we should argue over this little area that I've been there a dozen times. At least I'm making Dave laugh.
All right.
Well, it does sound like an argument.
Sometimes you gotta
Actually,
try to defend, Dave, I've been there, I'm not, you know me, if this was a wetland, what did we do with the vernal pool? Becky said, we gotta stop, we gotta pause, we gotta go out and look at it. We sent LEC back out there, and LEC said, that's a vernal pool, we said, okay.
Okay, you've made your point.
Quick,
Go ahead.
refresh my memory, what is the impact to your project of having that?
Maybe nothing, but I don't understand it. And by that, Steve, so when you have a wetland, obviously put flags around a wetland. When we have this, are we maxing it out with some capacity of, the 100-year storm and then putting flags on that? And then is that jurisdictional to 200 feet on a property that I've never, on a piece of a little 5,000 cubic feet, by the way, is the total capacity of this area. What do we flag? What do we even put on the plan? And is that 200 feet, a 200-foot buffer from an area I've never seen water in? It just doesn't make any sense. The rest of this process makes all kinds of sense to me. This one doesn't. So yes, I'm arguing, Dave, officially.
Well, I've only been out there once.
Let's go see it, guys.
Once
I'll go out there with
recently.
you.
And that site that doesn't hold water, and I'm confused a little bit, to tell you the honest, but if it's a site that Art pointed out to us when I walked with him, it was holding water. And he had he didn't have as wishy-washy a position on it as you were giving me that he had. So I'd like to take a quick look at that, for one thing. So, I mean, that's,
We should proceed, though, Mr. Chairman.
What?
We should proceed.
okay, yeah. You're right. We've
One
gone over
last
that.
question for you, unrelated to that. Now, so I'm going to planning board next Tuesday. I mean, the sum total of the questions you've asked, the answers we've given, there's nothing I should relay to planning board or forestall my planning board work.
That is a Matt Sosik decision. I can't point anything dramatic toward you, but if anybody have a comment?
I'll just say, I would like to see the documentation from MIPA as to what the alternatives that were presented, whether or not it specifically dealt with the wetlands or not. Not having documentation, it makes it very challenging to give any type of advisement, right? I mean, if Art truly did say that this doesn't seem to be isolated land subject to flooding, you probably have a fan in me to support what Art says, but I don't have everything in front of me. So if I have documentation of this stuff, I'd probably be okay with the entire project. I just don't have it, and that makes it kind of challenging,
Got it.
All right, so on that note, Matt, would you like a continuation?
Yes, please.
Yep, thank you.
Do we?
Yeah, check the audience.
Yep.
Comments?
Or questions?
Questions?
Hi, Robert Barnes, 42 Fiscal Road, and I'm here just for learning what concerned citizens, and just here to learn and understand what's going on. Our concerns are more around traffic safety, things related to that I think is more for the planning board.
Yeah.
Yes, and I've heard your name, and Gene Bouban specifically asked us to bring the traffic engineer next Tuesday. So in case you were there, so he could answer any questions you have directly. So the traffic engineer will be probably in this room if you are. Thank you. But I appreciate that.
All right. And would you please check the
Sure.
exterior? I want you guys to know our first customers back from COVID.
Yeah.
We have not had anybody in this room besides.
Oh, no, Dave Utica.
Oh, Dave tonight.
He was an applicant, though.
Yeah.
Does that interest into the lottery?
Is there a number related to that? You want to go play that number? Yeah, number one.
Good evening, is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 30 Main Street, 20 Fiscal Road, notice of intent for a development of a residential and commercial cul-de-sac subdivision? Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the 30 Main Street, 20 Fiscal Road, notice of intent?
All right, thank you.
Hear anyone?
Hearing none, no questions? All in favor? All in favor of the continuation? Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks, Matt.
I can speak.
Ladies and gentlemen,
about
thank you.
that.
Have a good night, Matt.
Good to see you in person.
Take care.
Good to be
Yeah, it
here.
is good, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know, I agree with you.
Absolutely.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Have a great one.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for coming in.
Appreciate it. All right, we are now at
118 Leadvine.
118 lead mine. Holy mackerel. Groundhog Day.
You ain't kidding. Oh, boy.
All right, so we have Glenn Kravosky on here. It looks like we probably have the,
Hi, Glenn.
Yeah, no kidding.
Good evening, thank you.
You're looking good, Glenn. Looking good.
I always am, but thank you for saying that.
so just as a reminder where we're at with this is an enforcement order that was issued. Discussion on compliance of this was extended to provide additional time for them to submit items to bring the project back into compliance. What we've received since the last time we've discussed this, we have a restoration report, which goes over and summarizes the restoration activities that occurred on the upper lot. And then we also have a proposed site restoration plan to address the issues associated with the expired permit of when the cottage was raised and rebuilt. So there were still some outstanding things there. As far as the completed restoration work, it appears that a majority, based off of what he submitted of that wetland restoration work, has been completed. Just based off of, I mean, it doesn't say exactly what they planted, but they had a receipt on there. It looks like there's still some hemlock trees that need to be planted, and then we're waiting on germination out there. But it looks like they've completed the majority of that work. For the proposed restoration work, and I'll pull the plan up when you start discussing it with them. The plan submitted includes the complete removal of the gravel parking area across the street. With upland and wetland restoration, we have stream bank restoration along where the road crosses over with the culvert on both sides there. With that, in addition, they're gonna build up that previous stone wall, part of it's still there, so that way the drainage coming down will flow past the culvert, which has been a big issue for erosion there. And they've added BMPs for infiltrating roof runoff. They've removed portions of the paved parking area and added some BMPs, some infiltration trenches there. So they, the last discussion, you know, there was questions about removing additional pavement. That plan has not been revised to include additional pavement removal there. So I can pull the plan up. I'm sure Mr. Kowalski wants to add onto that for you. Present his thing.
Do you
Glenn,
consider that it was complete according to the reference that we had 2 weeks ago?
Well, there was comment from some members of the board that they were looking for additional pavement removal, and no, that plan was not revised. I'm sure they have an explanation for that for you.
The only revision was that they specifically said this will be left. You know, it's like, take that, Alderman.
So just give me a
All right.
second to pull that up. Glenn, if you have something you want to add in here.
Yes, thank you. The work across the street, both buffer zone and wetland creation, because it had appeared that it was there prior to regulation, comes to 2.72% more restoration than what we're asking to leave in place, that the narrow strip of bituminous with 1 foot by 1 foot drip strips on both the western side and the southern side, along with Coltec to at 1 inch in 24 hour for the roof runoff. Also, another drip strip on the eastern side of the pavement after that asphalt is cut off.
I'm going to pull that plan up.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hey, I'm looking at the right plan.
So if we look at just at the top middle of the screen, we'll see that 893 square feet of wetland to be created. That appears to be historic filled wetlands from what I augured into it and found a buried A horizon underneath it. And a small piece also of 466 square feet of buffer zone restoration with mitigation of upland plants, as you can see, upland and transition plants, red maple, American hazel, northern bayberry, all native yellow birch, native to this swamp area, this bog behind us. And again, the same goes along with the creation of the wetland. And when we look at that, the 498 square feet of requested to remain asphalt, again, 2.72% larger. I think I got reverberation going on with, just started up for some reason. But that's what we're looking to give everything up across the street that we don't believe by reg we would have to, because it had been there. But it's our pleasure to pull it all back and give it back to wetland. Prove that it, take all the topsoil out that's been placed as filled, and go down to the original A horizon. And if we have to bring it back up so this doesn't turn into a ponding area, but more of a shrub swamp, the wetland part of it, we would bring it all the way back up after we remove all the fill, and then have a very legitimate, good, thick O horizon, A and O horizon, and then plant on that. And we just finished a replication like this, and it's totally successful. We just made it about a month and a half ago. Everything's living and up on hummocks, the wetland plants. We're truly confident, because we've been making wetlands since '86, that we can restore this area. And we're asking, for that bit of concrete, bituminous concrete to remain. As far as the rebuilding of that stone wall that held up the roadway, when we were removing material up above on the Adams lot, if we call it that, we did salvage nice flat rocks, and we would use that and substantial size rocks so that once we put them in, these are not going to be little chinks. We make sure that this is substantial and stays in place. And then on the armoring, I'm reverberating again. On the armoring, we would accomplish that with round rock, as it says, 10 to 12-inch diameter. Other things we show on the plan is erosion controls, as you would require. And that's that lower lot. It was brought up on this subject that we were lacking some eastern hemlock. Both New England Wetland Plants and Bigelow and Western Nursery are all short of hemlock right now, but we did find some through Arello Corp., and so we'll bring those additional 6 in. But that's more for the planting up above, but it was added into the long agenda for this lot. So I'll just bring up that we just contacted and finally found some. We would like to move, one last thing, I'm sorry, thank you through the chairman. We would like to move forward with the restoration as the season's getting, I know it was 2.6 inches if Mr. Sloslick didn't know, but we had 2.6 here in Worcester and in Oxford. And so it was substantial, the rain event. But we're going to see the water table dropping, and this type of work can take place when you give us the go-ahead if you do give us the go-ahead to move with the restoration, saw cutting, and other things that have to be done.
Glenn, can you tell me why one of the selected plants that you're planting near a lake is hemlock? I agree with all the betula plantings, but I can't understand hemlock.
Well, sure, it's easy to say. If you stand on the road and you're facing into this area, this is a hemlock swamp.
I understand that. However, we do know that the woolly adelgid has been attacking everything around the lakes.
I just talked to landscape people that sell these plants, and they're saying that it was a cycle, and I agree. I even disagreed with the girl today that I've seen adelgid harming trees also, but it was on the original planting list from Norman Hill, and geez, I don't want to reinvent the world, but it'd be my pleasure to take hemlock off and put in more, say, yellow birch, which is a facultative species, or red maple, which is facultative. Those species are fine for us. They're just not evergreen.
You go for Asaruba, I'm with you. Okay. But you had to have trouble keeping a straight face when the salesperson looked at you and said, people are planting hemlocks.
I'm in Franklin on one recently. Everybody is shying away because, and I, again, brought the species up, the pest.
Okay. One more serious question, though. You talked
Yes,
about
sir.
going through Horizon A. How deep was it?
Approximately, because it's been suppressed or depressed because of the traffic on top of it, there's a couple of feet of fill, and then I hit the black buried A horizon.
Really?
AO. Yes, I'll go over there and we'll show it to you. But it's but depressed because the mud in the swamp itself is approximately, if we go out in the swamp, it's about 10 inches to 12 inches thick in that area. So if you depress the mud, which you can when you put fill on it, and then park cars on it, you will get that black lower layer pushed out, depressed, and then 1.5 to 2 feet of fill.
Thank you.
I just did one, could I say one? I'm sorry, you don't want to hear anymore. I just did 3 feet of fill on a wetland, on Prospect Street, on a historic farmer's fill. It was all fine sand. And the fill was 3 feet deep, but the bottom of the fill was below the elevation of the adjacent wetland. Once we took the fill out, we had to come back up.
All right.
Okay, so it does get depressed.
Steve?
Yeah, I like 99% of your plan. And I don't want to just like be a one issue commissioner, but the first time that I walked onto that property down by the lower property, and I saw that blacktop, as well as my colleagues all said, this never would have been permitted. And And then another time I was down there with the commission, and I specifically said what we would have permitted would be a 12-foot wide driveway along the western side of the property there. And Mr. Kelleher pointed out that, I said measure it from the sidewalk, and he said that pointed out that there was going to be some sort of a structure built where the septic system thing is. And I said, well, I think the commission would approve a driveway start there and measure 12 feet out, which is a typical driveway that we permit. And it would be 12 feet wide at that point, but it would be wider, obviously, down next to the house, which is fine, because you just want a nice straight driveway. So, and then at several meetings, I mentioned you need to cut out more of that blacktop, and put in stone, put in grass, put in stone, and use it for parking. And we don't care. But what we care about is that amount of blacktop. So, and then on site with you, I very politely pointed out that this will be about the 10th time that I mentioned that we never would have permitted that much blacktop. And here we are with not only you're leaving it, but now you're putting a little note in there for me to read that you're going to leave that blacktop there. So that is a major concern of mine, and maybe the commission, because like I said, we never would have, everybody that looked at that said we never would have permitted that much blacktop. Oh, and then one other thing. What is a 1 foot by 1 foot filter strip? 1 foot by 1 foot. You've got it all over. So anyway, those are my 2 comments.
Through the chairman, if I can answer the question.
Go ahead.
The 1 foot by 1 foot, there's a detail on the plan. It's 1 foot wide by 1 foot deep, crushed stone bed, which allows for infiltration on 3 sides. If you're looking at the trench, the bottom of the trench, the side of the right side of the trench, left side, whatever we're talking. So crushed stone, washed crushed stone, typical driveway drainage trench. It's subgrade. It's at the grade of the existing land, and the water will shed off. We're tilting the driveway in that direction to shed off to put the water back in the ground.
Okay, that's a perfect answer. Thank you.
And the second, on the first question you had, we do realize that the commission would, as you had stated, would not normally, or maybe ever, have permitted this bituminous 498.7, but just looking at the straight out numbers, 1,400 square feet across the street is what we're giving up or back, and we're asking for 500 here. That's where that 2.72 came in, where I don't think if we weren't offering anything to restore wetlands, I would say there'd be no chance at all to even ask for this. And we didn't just throw that word in there to remain. We understand that it's a vote of the board if it's going to remain. It's not us saying we're going to stick it there, because we know that you have the power and we don't. The vote, you should say the vote has the power.
Glenn, you mentioned that you were giving us the wetland across the street, and I sort of corrected you the last time, but I don't want to get this into some kind of a contest. It's totally unrelated. We went out there and we showed where we wanted those stones to be moved to where we wanted those stones moved. Make that grammatically correct. And you guys did a nice job. Your plan is great, and I like what you're doing. And after the stream comes under the road, I mean, that's a really tough situation there, and I like what you've come up with. And my holding point is that 12-foot wide driveway is what we would have permitted in the beginning. So anyway, but I appreciate everything else that you guys have done and have planned.
Stephen?
Thank you, sir.
I agree with Steve, and I was on site when this was discussed multiple times. I also appreciate the restoration across the street. Anytime a wetland's filled, it's a problem. And I realize you're not necessarily obligated to do that in this case. But, yeah, I am very concerned about setting a precedent where people go in and they pave, make a huge area of pavement, and then, without any permit, and then come back and say, well, we're gonna put a filter strip around it so it's okay. Or, we're gonna, in this case, you've got some negotiation with the wetland fill across the street. But this bothers me too.
Eric?
I guess, Glenn, the only question I had, just kind of referencing back to what Steve had mentioned about the structure or the cut-in that was supposed to be above the septic tank. We had talked about that on site, that was going to be, that was going to be pervious material and then kind of go from there. So what happened between that discussion to here? Because it would seem that if that cut-in was there and that was pervious, and then we use that as the boundary to start the 12-foot, that we might be significantly closer. So if you could just clarify what happened between now and then, because I thought it was pretty much a necessary evil to get underneath there to that septic tank.
Sir, Eric, I apologize. That was an oversight. I'm just looking in, being at meetings, maybe it's my 66-year-old age brain, but we missed that. You just brought it up, and it just came to light that we did talk about that. That would be on the plan, whatever the dimensions required, and I'm making a note on my plan, talking to the engineer or whoever came up with whatever area has to be crushed stone around that septic tank, that will be on a plan because it was an oversight. I hope I didn't omit anything else, but that was an oversight, so that will be corrected. And that's it on that one. I apologize, but I'm sorry, through the chairman, it was you, Eric, that had asked for the numbers in comparison of across the street to here, and that's why those numbers they should have been on the plan at the get-go, but they're on the plan now. You did ask for them.
No, I very much appreciate that, Glenn, and I appreciate all the work that you put into this. Just seems to be that we're at a loggerhead here over that boundary line, and I mean, you guys could probably do yourselves some favors in establishing a different boundary line if you had included that septic tank cutout as part of the plan. That's a guess. I don't know, but I do know that would reorient where the 12 feet starts at least.
Our boundary line is to where, to the left that we would cut off asphalt? I just want to be clear on what you're saying. I just wasn't clear on what he was saying.
Glenn, stop talking. You've been through this multiple times, so don't say any more unless I address you to do so. Go ahead, Aaron. Check, see if anybody else would like to hear.
Good evening. Is there anyone on the public line that would like to speak to the enforcement order for 118 Lead Mine Lane? Anyone on the public line for 118 Lead Mine Lane?
Evidently not.
No.
No? All right. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
This is just the enforcement order part, I think.
What?
This is just the
Enforcement
It's an enforcement order, not a public hearing, Ed.
Yep, you're right, we got it. Within the enforcement order. Do I have a motion?
Well, let's see, how do we put this in a motion?
My feeling is that we begin fining.
Say again?
We begin fining. He's stood in the driveway, both of them have, and verbalized, what they were gonna do. We listened to it, we agreed with it, and they're just playing with us.
I agree.
He's brought it back and ignored it completely. Is there anybody here that didn't think they needed to reduce some of the tar?
Well, do we know what the plan from file number 684 actually says relative to that driveway? Becky?
Yeah.
I don't have it with me, but there was a specific condition in there that if it didn't include paving any driveway, there wasn't a specific area shown for driveway, but it said if there was ever any plan, that paving was not included with that permit, and if they ever had a plan to do that, they had to come back.
So in DEP file number 300-684,
Yeah.
there was no driveway as it exists today.
No driveway tarring allowed.
Correct. There was no
Okay.
approved with that.
I just wanted to clarify that
Very
because
good.
this goes back a long, long time, and it hasn't been resolved yet.
Yeah. All right? Well,
Think about it, we're in the 1100s, and this is a 684.
I know. Yeah. So do I have a motion?
You're suggesting, Mr. Chairman, the beginning of the finding process?
Right.
So what would be the end point? Them coming in with a plan that gives us a reasonable amount of blacktop on that property?
I don't know that that's going to happen.
But that's, if we start finding, then that we have to have something when we'll stop
Yeah.
finding them.
Right, we have to have a goal that
So
they can
would
achieve.
it be that they,
Well, that's obviously our goal, is to get compliance.
right? And some of the restoration work has already been done. It looks really good up at the top of the hill.
But we're talking a separate subject here.
Exactly, exactly. And none of this has been done yet.
Yeah, and none of it has been agreed to.
No.
Here. It's been agreed to on site, but it disappears when it arrives at our meeting.
Right.
I don't know if that's, I mean, they've always had the contention that, I mean, you guys have expressed a different opinion, but I don't believe that they have once said that they planned on getting rid of all of that. When the last time we were on site, they had requested to keep it, and that's why I wanted the calculations, which admittedly weren't provided, and that impervious
But what
cutout was not
Did
included
you
in the
see the
calculation.
line on the thing? Who drew that line?
Yeah,
Did you do it?
no, I did not.
I didn't
draw
do
the
it
line.
either.
I
Who did
didn't-
it?
I didn't draw the line.
No,
I'm just saying.
you're
I'm
saying
just-
that they didn't agree to it, but they drew a line they were gonna take out, and
Well,
they didn't
but
come here and do
They
that.
asked us, they were saying on site that they didn't want to go that far, is the point. You know, and I'm just not interested in saying anybody lied to us.
No, I'm not interested in that either.
In
Here's-
trying to.
Here's the issue. On site, the first time, I forgot who all was there, but I said, you've got way too much blacktop, never would have been permitted. So I paced off 12 feet from that structure, where he thought that structure would be. I was giving him some latitude there. I paced off 12 feet, and I said, that's where the line should be. He paced off a couple of feet from the north, or from the west edge, and he said, I'd like it to be here. And I go, oh, why? Because, maybe he had some good reason, I don't know. I said, why? I'm a reasonable guy. He says, because it would cost too much, it would cost more money to go where you want. And I go, well, I'm not gonna go into the history of this, how we just one day found out that you paved. So that's the line probably that he has there, is his original line, which was not anything that anybody agreed to. I told him at the time, we would never have permitted that line. So,
All right, I want to
that's the history of that. What, Eric?
So if
Yeah, no, I was there.
If I understand it correctly, what you gentlemen are looking for is a note to them indicating that finding is going to begin immediately until blacktop removal is needed, until blacktop removal is indicated on a plan that shows a maximum of 12-foot width with a variation for the septic cap.
Okay.
Is that what you're looking for?
Little area, yeah, that's,
And so we'll have to flesh that out a little bit, because we'll have to indicate the time frame in which it has to be implemented after the plan is approved. Because we can't just leave it up in the air. We have to give them some surety that this is going to fix things
Right.
Glenn, what think you about that?
I think that we gave you the plan that we discussed at the site inspection, and we came back with the plan that we thought the board would then discuss with the remediation across the street and with the asphalt being cut off that we showed on this line that's on there now. And if the commission, so thank you for asking me, Mr. Barnacle, if the commission so chooses, we could cut off that asphalt that is to remain and just leave the area across the street as it is now. And if that satisfied the board, along with cutting out where the septic tank is because it's required, to give a rectangle around that for impervious, for crushed stone,
Glenn,
we would approve.
Glenn, yeah, he's,
What, Chairman?
I was on the original site
Yes, sir?
when that project went in. I was on the original site when that building was built.
With me.
And I can tell you respectfully that that stone fill, particularly those big boulders across the street, were not there, were not approved, and need to be removed. That's a separate subject, okay? Period.
oh, and I would add one piece to that, if I may.
Yeah.
Before you were on this project,
Yes, sir.
Becky and I and several other members of the commission showed Mr. Gallagher where we saw wetland fill, wetland destruction, whatever. And we had pointed out that that have to be restored. So this before your time. So for you to say that you came up with this idea yourself and that it's like a present to the world of wetlands, you're wrong. We pointed out what needed to be restored, and that's what you put on the plan. And that is the basis for me saying it's a separate argument. It's not, and I corrected you the last meeting. And I'm not trying to be a hard person about this, but that's the way it is. And you've done a fine job of planning how to fix that across the road. It matches what Becky and the commission and myself are on site and said that's what we wanted to do. So we're not trading that you fix something across the street, so we're going to give you a whole bunch more blacktop.
Thank you.
That's not an issue. And it's fine, that Eric asked for that comparison, and that's a good comparison. But the main thing is, multiple times, we have said we never would permit anything wider than about a 12-foot driveway. And so that's nothing new. Just wanted to
If this
reemphasize
is,
for 100.
through the chairman, if this is the board's consensus that through a vote or through your consensus, then we will cut back the asphalt to some 12 feet or agreed upon line on the western side of the driveway. And we can say that, yes, you asked the gentleman earlier to remove fill from the wetland, but we are coming even closer to the roadway with our restoration, not to just where you put the boulders, which we can see on the plan, but all the way to the road.
Okay.
All right.
And I complimented you on that plan.
So through the chairman, if we might agree that from where you can see the boulders on the plan across the street, to restore everything right to the road as we show, and potentially cut off that asphalt for 98.7 and put a rectangle around the septic tank of crushed stone of legitimate size, whatever that's supposed to mean. And also still use the drip strip on the western side of the new cut and the southern side of the new cut, and obviously on the eastern side. If you feel that will work, that will be the plan that will be generated within the next couple of days. We thought we were coming in with a discussionary plan, and apparently that was not exactly what you wanted, but that's the way it appeared to me at the last site inspection.
Well,
so I'm wrong.
I wonder what parallel universe you were in, Glenn, that you thought that we were going to agree to this plan. Sorry.
No, can we, hold on, hold on.
Why the, yep.
All right.
Well, Mr. Chairman, it would appear that perhaps what Glenn is saying is that within the next 2 weeks, or prior to our next meeting, they will do what we want done without having the finding process begin.
Yes,
So
sir.
what we probably should do is give an indication that, should this not be completed, I think our next meeting is a month from now, isn't it?
20th.
Should at our next meeting, Glenn come in and say, well, it wasn't able to be accomplished, then we should have already notified the applicant that the blacktop removal is needed to 12 feet width, et cetera, just as I indicated.
A plan for the blacktop
Right.
removal.
Yep.
Yep.
And
Or we begin finding.
and when we're gonna have.
We're going to begin finding unless they bring it in.
And that would give them more than the 12-day notification that's required before finding. This would be the first warning that we're going to start the finding process.
All right. If the board agrees with that. Eric? I'll say ye.
We still have to work out the wording, but,
Yeah. I'm,
ooh.
yeah, I'm not in necessary agreement with that, and I feel part of this with Glenn, because I asked for the calculation, so I feel like there's a little bit of acrimony here that I realize this has been a very stressful and long overdue process, but I did ask for the calculation, so I'll take responsibility for asking for that, and so any of that additional frustration, I apologize for, but I wanted it for my own edification. It wasn't provided, but with regards to the septic cutout, but, you know what? I'm okay with that as laid out.
With what?
Give them until, well, we need them a week before, so by the 13th of July, we need to have a plan submitted to Becky for our review for our meeting on the 20th. That includes removal of that asphalt strip up to a 12-foot limitation.
And just to prove that they're serious about it, what I'd like to include in what we give them for verbiage is that their plan also include how long it will take to implement. So they should already have been talking to subcontractors relative to how this is going to work.
Yep.
Because otherwise, this can get delayed into winter, and then nothing happens again.
Okay, good.
Yeah, that was good talk.
All right.
We just need to vote on that.
What?
Just need to vote on that.
Yeah, consensus.
I haven't got the wording down yet.
Okay, they come back to us with a plan which includes, the plan that they've brought us today with the inclusion of the removal of the asphalt to a 12-foot width.
From the edge of the thing that's missing on this plan.
Right.
As Eric pointed out.
Yeah.
Yeah, including a
And
timeline for execution.
In a time.
And a timeline to complete it, and if they don't, we will begin finding at that point.
And I think we've said on multiple occasions, they could put stone down, they can put grass in there.
Let the
Okay,
engineer
good.
decide what has to be done.
Yeah,
Exactly.
all right?
But if
Just
you say
saying.
if there can be parking, they can have some alternatives. They could
Exactly.
crush stone, they could do,
Right.
Right,
Yeah, that's the point I'm
a
making.
number of
All
different,
in favor?
they can,
David? You in
Yes.
favor?
yeah, I have to be in favor.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you for your time
Oh,
again.
hang on. Oh, this was just for the enforcement order?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Becky, when we work the wording out, I would appreciate it if we could send Glenn a note relative to exactly what the wording is.
yep.
All right, so now we are,
Yeah.
Thank you.
we have done the enforcement order, and we are now at 118 Lead Mine, continued NOI, single-family home. 300-1073, and we're, this, Glenn, will you accept a continuation on this? Because,
Yes, thank you.
yep. All in
It's
favor of
for-
continuation on this?
To the next meeting.
Thanks, Glenn.
Thank you for that.
Yep. All right, Beck, what's next?
All
Cherry
right.
Brook?
Yeah, we have Mr. Kubowski on here, though, for our old business.
Oh,
Thank
Number
you.
15,
Yeah, okay, we'll do that then.
Charlton Road. After the
Thank-
last meeting, Mr. Grabowski did reach out to me, and he did inform me that they looked more into the spoil piles that are located on the adjacent property that we walked by before you get over the stream. And that they've been there, they've been in existence prior to the restoration activities. So therefore, at this time, they don't want to remove them as part of what was discussed as that restoration plan for the closing out of the past permit, which was discussed as the best way to do that would be that enforcement order, so they could get into the remedial activities sooner than later. So he's asking that that be taken off of what was discussed as the enforcement order, and they'd like to include that later on as part of their notice of intent for the new project. Glenn, is there anything else you want to add to that? Oh, I just add that asked for some materials. This afternoon, he did submit some materials to look at for that.
If I, just briefly, if I could, during the construction of the 174, we have a flyover, which, if I'm going through the chairman, we have a flyover from 89 that shows the fill piles. We talked to Chesler, and we have an affidavit, or a signed statement from him that was the tailings and the boulders that came out of 174. So we have the flyover that. We also had Gary Magnuson review the mitigation for petroleum attenuation, and he said there was nothing in there that would have generated those fill piles on 174. So between the flyover showing the construction and the fill piles in 89, in the Chesler letter, and the Gary Magnuson, that there wouldn't have been, and the fill piles that I went and inspected and found 2 and 3 foot diameter boulders on the ones on the right, and all just tailing materials on the one on the left. It all turned out to be screening from and parts of that construction of 174. So those piles, we would add them into the Procon riverfront, the graded riverfront. They're only small square footages, but to restoration of that whole corridor of the riverfront. And there's more to come, even with the crossing that would be discussed, that's there now as part of restoration. So those three fill piles were just showing that they were there prior to the river law, prior to 96, August. Everything else we're ready to move forward with and restore the wetlands, take the trenches out, take the other fill piles that are closer to 20 that we cannot prove where they came from. They're up there. And so we're just going to take those out as part of restoration mitigation under an enforcement order that you may issue. And I will be overseeing that restoration. If the commission is not ready to vote on the restoration, I will give a detailed letter of each point of how the crushed stone and trench and pea stone and the 2 riser pipes for wells, all the methodology of how they're coming out, how those wells are shallow, how we take out. We just did a trench restoration in Maple Street in Paxton last week, and we similar take it out, backfill with the same till material that's existing on the site, and then with a topsoil, then a wet meadow seed mix. We'll describe that in more detail in the next 7 days, so that maybe you can vote on the enforcement. Andy Baum Summit is now just revising the restoration plan to discuss those other ones that are on 174, and that they weren't part of the 150 site. So if I get 7 days, I'll give you a complete outline.
I'd just be curious, Becky, are you comfortable with the documentation that was submitted? Do you have any concerns?
I didn't really have a chance to review it all. I did open it, and I just got it this afternoon, so I did see there was an aerial photo, and it does look like he points out where there probably was a couple piles. I can pull it up if you want. I mean, I didn't have time to go through it all.
All right.
So
it sounds like we need to do a little bit of investigation on that. Not that we don't trust your word, Glenn, but we didn't have time to review.
I wouldn't feel comfortable saying
Okay.
yes.
No, I
appreciate your honesty.
Through the chair, I've got a question too.
Go ahead.
Hey, Glenn, when you fill those wells with till, is that?
We're not going to do it that way. They're shallow, so we're going to actually pull them out with mini excavators and take the whole steel structure out.
Right.
There's only two.
Yeah, you're taking all of the, you're taking the well components out.
Yes, sir.
and then you're backfilling with till, right?
It's a Paxton type of soil over there, Canton, Paxton. We're gonna use the same material that is native to that site. We wouldn't put a coarse gravel in there so
Yeah.
that the wetland drains. We'll use that same tilly material that's native.
Is that compacted?
And the trench work is generally, that trench is only a couple feet deep, so we would,
I'm
we
curious about the
generally
wells in
don't
particular. not
compact
the-
too much, but
Yeah.
we can run over it to make sure that it has that settling feel, and then we're just gonna put 4 to 6 inches of topsoil on top, which is the standard native in that area. That's about what we have for topsoil, so we're just gonna mimic that.
Right. My only concern is that at some point in the future, if there's some kind of spill or, I don't want to, they're creating an avenue for fast infiltration and, because it's
No.
an enormous wetland system behind there that's very critical and,
Yes, sir.
yeah, I just want to make sure that that's protected.
Thank you, sir. Native, 18 to 22 minute perk rate type of Paxton soil, and not that 2 to 4 minute perk rate stuff.
Okay, thank you.
So we're
Thank
looking
you.
for a continuation here, is that what we're talking about?
On the discussion.
Becky?
So, I didn't draft and issue that enforcement order because this came up at this time.
Yeah.
Would you like me to still move forward with issuing that, or are you waiting?
What are you saying?
Well, at the last meeting, we discussed drafting of an enforcement order as a avenue for them to get the restoration work to be
Right.
completed.
Yep.
Are we putting that on hold now? Is that what,
Yeah, is that what we're saying? That's
Is that-
what you're asking for, Glenn?
I'm just,
No, I think Glenn's asking to go ahead and move forward with the restoration, right? Yeah.
If I could, through the chairman, we will, because Ms. Rebecca, Mr. Senzo, and the commission does like a complete outline, so we have it on the plan, except for those piles that I just discussed, everything else on the plan, but we want to
I
itemize
don't know
it.
which piles those are, Glenn.
The piles that are actually on 150, those are still going. The piles on 174 that show up in the 89 flyover during the construction of the building, those piles would stay. We're going to show how that was there. It's in the flyovers, you can see them. And then, but everything that we're going to do for restoration as required in the original order of conditions for the hydrocarbon remediation, we're going to outline that in probably 7 or 8 different points on how we're going to do each one. The well removal, the trench removal, the backfill with a tilly material, the 4 to 6 inches of topsoil, the removal of the fill piles that are on 150 up near 20, how we're going to then put a loom on top of that, what sapling species and brush species we're going to use on that, and what seed species we're going to use. So I want to outline that completely, so it's not only just on a plan, but in an 8.5 by 11, similar to what Rebecca and the board asked for on the Kelleher last one. Itemize each thing you did, and that's what we did for the Adams lot and Mr. Kelleher's lot. But we want to do the same thing for the restoration here, so that it's clear on what we actually are doing for the restoration as part of the requirement of the order of condition.
Continuation? Go ahead.
So just to simplify, so I don't think, you are asking for the issuance of an enforcement order for everything except for those spoil piles that you sent. And if
174.
we disagree, we will then issue a subsequent enforcement order for those 3 piles. Is that what you're requesting?
The fill piles were in prior to
No, I understand.
Riverfront Ray.
No, that's not, we can't debate that because we don't have any evidence of it at this
Well, when you
point.
see it, when you review the evidence.
So, I'm just want to be clear, you guys want to do the restoration work starting tomorrow conceively, right? Or whenever. So you would like an enforcement order so you can do some restoration work, is that correct?
We would submit the documents by 7 days prior to your next meeting, so that at your next meeting, if you chose to, you could issue the enforcement order and we can immediately start, and we'll give a schedule on moving right through the restoration.
All right, Glenn, you confused me. It sounded like you were asking for something that you can action on. Okay. Yeah.
No, so you're not going to... I agree.
All right, I'm not the only one? Generally, I am. Okay, all right, good.
Glenn, do you know who owns this property?
We already have permission to work on that. We call it
Who
G5.
owns the property?
We have a letter in our file that
Chesler,
we,
right?
I don't have the name. Dan Proudy built it. He knows the people. He went to the direct owner.
Chesler is the one
and
that
they-
I understand owns the property. Do you know what they have, what they do for a living?
Oh, you mean the 150?
Yeah.
That's Chesler and
Construction.
Proudy own
They
that,
do
right. I thought you
construction
meant
for a
the
living.
G5 property. Yeah,
Those
Proudy
piles
and-
would be 5 minutes, they could have had, they could have had those piles out of there in the time we've been talking.
I know, but we still got two different trench systems that have to be
Okay,
removed,
all right.
and the riser pipes, those steel pipes.
So you want a continuation?
Almighty.
Come back with a revised restoration plan with narrative of what you're going to do to satisfy the ordinance conditions that are outstanding
Yes,
for
yes,
150
ma'am.
Shelton Road.
Yes, ma'am.
And then we'll move forward with,
No, just say, you agree to it or not?
Let's make absolutely certain that we know what we're asking for, because the last set of minutes clearly indicated that we had no clue what we were asking for on this site. And I would not like to have a second set of minutes come out and indicate exactly the same set of blurry subject matter.
All right, so what we are looking for,
I don't know, I fully agree with that, because I think we were, the only thing we were unclear about was the huge spoil pile and whether or not there was a wetland under there. And
Exactly right.
We clearly delineated that, so
And
I understand your point, but I don't know that I necessarily agree with
It
that.
may have been too broad.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think what Glenn listed is what he's going to bring in a plan.
Right.
Is what we're looking for.
Right.
Okay.
With the exception of those other piles that look to me like two 10-yard dump trucks, which could have been taken out in an hour.
Yeah.
But, hey, I'm.
They're not sitting in a wetland, though.
No, they're not, so I'm not concerned about those.
Right, and they've been there for a while.
So I have no problem if, for whatever reason, they want to leave those. I don't know why, but.
so we're giving them a continuation, right? Let's just get,
Right,
Yep.
period.
Yep.
All in favor of a continuation till the next meeting?
yes.
Fine. Got it, Glenn.
Thank you very much. I know thank you very much for your
We're all
time.
set, Glenn. Thank you.
Thank you again. All right.
Becky, what's next?
Thank you, Glenn.
Don't do
go
it.
back up to number 10, 3 Cherry Brook Circle. This is a request for a certificate of compliance, DEP file number 300-218. This is an oldie. So we reviewed the file, and there's an additional file for this property. This open orders of conditions was discovered as part of a real estate transaction. It appears that this one was never closed out. This file number didn't include the actual construction of this house. It included the roadway, and it had 2 other houses as part of it. But because it was recorded on the deed before the property was subdivided, it carried with this one. Right. So that was on this property. In addition, we also have DEP file number 300-837. That was for the construction of this house. That one has been closed out. And that's the one, right, which had, it had riverfront work, so it had some perpetual conditions in there. So I went out, took a look at it. I don't have any issues with the closure of the 300-218 because there was nothing really pertaining to the property. But I did note that there was an area on the side of the property that's supposed to be not maintained, that was being maintained. So we've got a couple owners. The owner was actually out there when I went out there. He wasn't aware of any orders of conditions on the property when he bought it. His lawyer never even found the open order either. So I did talk to him about that. I did write a letter to the lawyer and included the information pertaining to the closed order that has perpetual conditions to remind them that that area is to not be maintained. It's supposed to be left to be natural. So I did make them aware of that, the new buyers. So, I would recommend the issuance. This would be a partial certificate of compliance, releasing 3 Cherry Brook Circle from 300-218. And then I just recommend we do a follow-up inspection to make sure that they're complying with the perpetual conditions on that property. With the new
This is one of
Sounds
the
great.
only times when I definitely agree to a partial, because this thing was so confused. And now, those people have got a much higher water level running around their property than they did when the property was built, because the stream has started really filling up on every single rainstorm. I mean, big time. It fills half that culvert, and the culvert's a 36-incher.
Oh, wow.
Are we, any other comments regarding this? All in favor? You got it, Becky.
Thank you. Next, number 11, we have 27 Valley Road. This is a tree removal. They're requesting to remove 2 trees within 25 to 50 feet of the lake. We did request an arborist report on this, and a site visit was performed with a couple members of the board last week.
Yes.
Last week, yep. So the maple tree is declining, and the oak tree has a severe lean to it and evidence of decline at the base of the tree. There are 5 additional mature trees between the lake and the trees to be removed. I'd recommend, based off the arborist assessment of it, that, you know, the trees are allowed to be removed. I'd recommend the replacement of 2 native deciduous trees that can be planted between the parking area and the lake that'll add to the canopy in the buffer zone there that'll be lost.
What did Joe suggest as the planting?
Oh, you'll love this. Let me find it here.
Oh, my God.
Oh, I missed it.
The Japanese trees.
Yeah, so you typically request a native tree, so I would say a native deciduous, and something that's gonna provide that canopy.
What were those trees? Some Japanese trees that.
I don't remember.
And I suggested that we do some kind of native, and he thought that I was biased against Japanese trees. But that was my personal opinion. I said, wait till Dave Barnacle hears this.
That's what you said on site.
I did.
Let me see it. So just to be clear, because I didn't go on site, the trees they want to remove are,
Where did he?
they're within the
Oh, the letter.
50-foot buffer, but outside the 25.
He left it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
One of them is a forked, was that the oak?
That was a maple.
The
Yep.
maple, and it's angled toward the house.
Okay.
Other than that, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Oh,
And-
no, that's the oak. It wasn't, was it forked?
Yeah.
Okay,
It
never
was,
mind.
yeah, it was, and then the other one was a maple.
That was a double
Yeah,
stem.
yeah. And it's got a few beetle holes on the bottom, but other than that, it's gonna live longer than Steve or I am.
Well, that's kind of disturbing. He based the whole thing on the 20-year plan.
Yeah.
And I said, wait a minute, I'm on the 20-year plan.
But
And I'm declining greatly. Well, maybe not greatly. But he did not think that was funny at all. But he was a little sheepish talking about his 20-year plan to 2 guys that are 75 and 74, sorry.
Yep. So,
If you'd have been there, you'd have.
but at any rate, I'm in favor of allowing the removal of the 2 trees.
But you want
Gotta look that
different replacement than they are requesting?
I'm not even gonna get into that. The trees along the water are big, and they're providing a lot of shade.
Yeah, they're fine.
And they're fine. So,
Right, it's,
this isn't one of those treeless lots.
Okay.
But are we going to require the,
Sure, if you want to, go ahead.
I would like to.
Yeah, yeah.
what would you like to see him plant there?
Something Japanese. I don't.
Ding how? You're number 1, GI.
I'd go with that, something Japanese.
A
No,
willow.
I agree with something deciduous, that's native deciduous, that's fine.
All right, native species. 2 replacement trees.
Yep.
All right? All in favor? Please. Becky, what else?
You'd have loved it.
That might be it.
In there.
All right, I still have agent report, but under old business, just wanted to bring up, I haven't had time to issue that letter to MIPA yet, but I will be working on that soon. I'm still working on issuing permits from the last
Okay,
meeting.
yeah.
So I will get that letter out, but I just haven't had a chance to get
All
that
right.
done. But speaking about that, you still need to set up a site visit to go out to 508 International. That was discussed at the last meeting.
Yeah. Steve, you interested in site visit?
To
With
which
me?
side, I'm sorry?
What?
Yes, I'm always interested in a site visit.
All right. Eric, what's good for you?
Yeah.
We need you, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, I would, whenever, that's fine, Tuesday mornings are fine. I would request that we access the property through Charlton, so we don't have to go over that barbed
Yeah.
wire fence again.
Oh, yeah, no.
Well,
There was an access road right there once we walked in.
Yeah.
So I realize they don't particularly want us to access it through Charlton, but I think it's a safety issue.
yeah, there's two, you need to look at the Lad Road portion of that to see how that restoration's coming out. And then, the other portions, so you're gonna be over there, I think.
There was a
probably
road
just
right there.
Follow the
I
road
don't
in.
Go over the barbed wire.
Yeah, that definitely, I had a really difficult time climbing over the fence and all that stuff, not to act like I'm getting unstable, but
Yeah.
that was rough, and I'm not gonna go back across that way.
No streams, no barbed wire.
No streets, no barbed wire.
I thought at the last meeting that we talked about two options. The option of the Conservation Commission was a third-party reviewer, and the option of the owner, the son of the owner of the property was to take pictures. Ed introduced the idea of taking another site visit, but wouldn't it be better to have somebody who really understands this better than us do the work? And also, it's like 2 miles long. So it's going to be a sizable event for trailblazing, and I think that a pro would be much more worthwhile in terms of what they see, because they also will have to look at all of the data that's been collected over the years relative to this project.
Yeah, I agree.
And I thought that's what we had agreed to once before. And it was proposed, and it's in the minutes from the last meeting, but it hasn't come to fruition. We didn't come with, that was one of the areas that I wanted to talk about relative to the minutes of the meeting. We came to no decision last week.
Well, it was my impression that we did, that we
No,
would do.
you gave the suggestion that you would take a site visit.
Right.
But the other two prongs of that were never dealt with.
No, they weren't.
Well, Russ said he wasn't gonna pay to have a third party go out there, so that was my thought based on what his response was.
He's also saying that, that they're not maintaining the roads, and so therefore, there's down branches, da-da-da-da-da-da. I think that it's reasonable for us to do a site visit and look at it, take a walk on the site, and then come back to the committee and tell the committee what we saw. And then if more action is necessary, then we can take that.
So are you going to traverse the entire trail?
I have no problem with that.
I don't have any problem with that either.
Okay.
Yeah.
Depends on where they access it. That would really,
Yeah, well,
Ankle
again,
breaking.
I would
Yeah.
like safe passage onto the property and not through the barbed wire.
Yeah.
and we'd be walking on the trails
Right.
and not bushwhacking.
Now you understand why it is that Route 49 has as a label in the State House, a no access road. Because there are no curb cuts that
Yeah.
are permitted. Even the people that came in from the Freezer Corporation that opened on our industrial parkway clearly indicated it's a no access highway.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you guys shouldn't be
you guys-
accessing it from there either.
I'm not.
Okay?
Well, while we're discussing site visits, I don't know if this is something you want to look at for July 13th or not, but I will be in Texas on July 20th. So what is, obviously you guys will have to have a quorum, but I don't know that we have ever put a period on the discussion about having commissioners access the meetings as long as there's a quorum in the room.
So-
Virtually, via the virtual.
So if they come out with, if the governor signs provisions, we're waiting to hear about that, then there will be an extension on the open meeting law requirements that may allow that. But right now, since we're operating under regular open meeting law, and if they don't do anything, right now, the board would be required to be in the room. We don't have provisions, I think, that towns could have elected to have it where a member of a board could have come in remotely, but we don't have that. Is that correct?
We do not, but I've asked for guidance from the attorney on if we wanted to how could we do that? But even under that law, which I don't think would be an issue for this situation, the chair has to be physically present, and a majority of the board has to be physically present. But you can still allow 8 board members or a member to be remote and vote, but there has to be some action by the Board of Selectmen. But there's one other meeting other than Monday for the board to take that action if it wants to. So as soon as I get the guys back from the attorney, they'll take a look.
All right, so
Is it on
Maybe
the,
possible.
it's possible we
Saying
could have you
there's
on
a
the.
possibility. Just
Big
so
white-
you say
There's a chance.
We'll pay for a big white cowboy
There you
hat.
go. So, well, the follow-up question is, it's gonna be broadcast, so I could always just watch in real time and then sign that affidavit, so I don't need to do it.
Worry about the next meeting.
Right.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
could interject too.
Well, I am a member of the public.
Right.
That's right, that's a good point. I could interject, I just couldn't vote. Okay.
Jeff, is it on the agenda for Monday?
No, I said there's another meeting besides Monday that they could take the issue on.
All right, Becky,
But I'm still waiting for the attorney to give me some information on it.
Oh, so you still need
So-
more clarification?
Would you like me to schedule that site visit, and would you like to do it,
I might pass.
I'm aware that they're, not sure where exactly, but there is an event scheduled there this weekend. Did you want to,
Tuesday?
did you want to do it next Tuesday, or did you have the opportunity to go before this weekend? Do you want to do it then?
When?
When do you want to go?
Tuesday's fine with me. I don't know how,
Well, if they have an event there this weekend, wouldn't that give them an opportunity to disturb the site, and we'd want to see that?
this weekend?
She just said they have an event there this weekend, so.
Why don't you set it up for us to go this weekend then?
Well, do you want to go Friday? Thursday? I need to give
I
you
can't do
24-hour
Friday
notice.
mornings.
Huh?
I could do the afternoon, but I can't do Friday mornings.
Yeah, I think I have something Friday. I'm not even sure what it is.
Yeah, I can't.
Thursday?
No,
Thursdays
Thursday's
are-
not.
Thursdays
Okay.
and Fridays are tough for me.
Yeah. Saturday,
Okay.
I could do it.
I don't know if anyone else can go on Saturday or wants to go on Saturday.
I can let you know tomorrow.
You know, we could do it on Tuesday. I can't.
I mean, I'm okay on Tuesday mornings are generally very easy.
We'll know just by looking
Right,
if anything's been on.
right.
Tuesday?
I can't make it Tuesday, luckily for me.
What the hell are you doing?
I might be old and retired, but I got a busy.
What about Monday? How's Monday?
I really think about it. I really don't want to go on that site visit. Monday, no. I hate to tell you this, but I'm going to be fly fishing, but I put some people off a long time.
There you go.
How about that
So would the two
honesty
of you like
and
to go on Monday?
I mean, Monday's fine for me.
I totally trust you two guys to,
All right.
Oh, that's right, there's only, yeah, that's right. We have, yeah, exactly. All right.
It's like the old bear joke. If we see a bear,
My walker told me nothing over 50 feet.
Pick your time,
right?
there's bears.
Yeah, what time works?
time frame, morning,
9?
9?
Nine works. I have a standing conference call that I've been looking to get out of on Monday morning, so that's as good an excuse as any.
Bring mosquito spray.
Mosquito spray?
It's next to water, and a lot of the water is fluctuating in depth, and right close to the edge of the shore, it's very, very, very shallow.
All right, sounds good. Mosquito spray, long pants, be prepared to sweat. Okay, done.
Bear spray.
Bear spray.
No, they already committed to it, just
What?
nothing.
I was gonna check the weather for you.
Oh, Jesus, we don't need any
But
more.
That's a great day.
Yeah, just under agent report, 2 things. I sent you a memo and a copy of a letter, concerns on recent site visits, inspections on things. One, forest cutting plan on Arnold Road. I went out there, brought Steve and Ed out there on Tuesday. I had happened upon it and was really concerned with the impacts to a stream on the site, working outside of the scope of their forest cutting plan. I did contact DCR. They were aware of it. They had asked me if erosion controls were installed. It was a mess, yeah. They were working with the contractor forester, whatever, harvester, whatever you want to call them, to repair that stream. DCR was going to continue to work with them. He asked for what my opinion on it was, and, you know, he kind of came back and said afterwards that he met with them. I said I was available to go out there. He met with them, and they're going to restore the stream. And I said, due to the gravity of the impacts, I thought that a plan needed to be developed by a professional wetland scientist, and they need to assess the downstream area too for impacts, because the whole site's open. There's definitely erosion that's occurred there, and probably sedimentation into resource area. So I expressed my concern to him about that, and I thought that they should, and I told him as well, should speak to DEP about what should be implemented there.
So DCR was aware of this? Did they issue a stop order?
They're already done working, I guess. So had they been still working, they could have issued a stop order, but they're done working.
Just let it be.
So
You would not believe
with
it.
the forest cutting plans, like, you don't have to take your crossings out right away. You have a certain amount of time. Well, this isn't that. This is something completely separate. This is a violation that occurred there.
And they didn't let you know that there was a violation?
No.
Wow.
Yep. So, I mean, I would,
What's the normal protocol on that, just out of curiosity? Are they supposed to
Well-
let you know?
That is the normal protocol. They don't
So they
worry
have
about
no
it.
obligation to
No.
let us know?
No, we have to find it.
But
We are
if
usually the ones
DCR
that-
finds it, they have no obligation to
Well, they
let
might
us
do
know?
something with it, but I don't think they'll tell us.
usually DCR works with them to address the concerns. We had another one at that Fiscal property. They got NRCS involved and worked out, you know, had them come out and look at the wetland and see what they thought might need to be done, et cetera, and they worked that out, and we were kind of involved on the sidelines, and they addressed it to DCR's, you know, what they were concerned with, I guess. So,
Well, do we need to issue an enforcement order then to take care of this?
well, that I don't know at this time. I think that maybe a formal request to DCR that they involve DEP with developing a restoration plan by a professional wetland scientist, not the harvester, might be a first step. In noting that, it appears it's a violation of Forest Cutting Act. It's a violation of the Wetlands Protection Act and our bylaw. So, I mean, they worked outside the scope of their permit.
Yeah.
And it becomes a violation that's
Right.
enforceable by you, I think.
Exactly.
I think so, but,
Well, I think it's appropriate to have DEP go in. I mean, it's a violation of the Wetlands Protection Act, and I know in the past, I had taken enforcement against foresters, the woodcutters, and I wasn't so much concerned about violation of the forest cutting plan. I just went after them because of violations of the Wetlands Protection Act.
right. I think maybe if it's brought to DEP's attention at this point in time.
All right. Anything else?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I also went out, I did send you a copy of a letter that I sent to the owner of the Pine Lake RV Resort. I mean, you probably read the letter, but on June 4th, I went out after that rainstorm. I just happened to be going by and noticed turbidity in the pond. I did, alert Mr. Halterman about that. And over the course of the weekend, we did document that continued turbidity, which did expand throughout the entirety of the pond. It did have suspended solids in it over the whole weekend, which was a concern. So I did issue a letter to them, making them aware of that. I also, in that letter, notified them that we still have not received the monitoring reports that were required and discussed. And I also did say that I was going to bring it to your attention and that I would be performing site inspections to check in on the project site, because we need to see where this turbidity is coming from. So I did contact them this morning, did let them know I was going to be stopping by, because we did have that rain event yesterday. I did stop by the site. And I did, actually I went by the pond this morning on my way to work, and I did notice evidence of turbidity in the pond again. So that is why I called them. I did go out to the RV site, did call them before I went. I did meet them at the gate and was escorted around with one of the maintenance persons. I did look at all the discharges. I have some photos I can show you if you'd like to see them at this time. Some significant concerns on the site. By the time I was there, everything was running clean, so I couldn't see that, you know, there was no evidence in the duck pond at that time. I could see at what would be the third discharge into the stream. Coming off the site, there was some, you know, evidence of erosion going down into our stormwater BMP that was there. You know, it was a fairly decent event we had, so a lot of that did overflow, probably went into the stream and then made it further down. Up at Pine Lake, along that road along Pine Lake, there was the discharge that comes down from the Meadows area, and we have the other BMPs that were put in place. All the erosion controls were blown out there, and there was a significant amount of sediment that you could see that had washed into the lake right there. At the next outlet, which is the outlet 6, which is the one that we've asked for the BMPs that they have the plan for now. That one, same thing. Those erosion controls were blown out, and there was evidence of sediment on that and into the resource area. Going further along on that back section where the bordering vegetated wetland is there, they had put a small BMP in place there because they had to manage some of the runoff coming off their roadway. That whole wetland was turbid. It was just full of silt. And then the isolated wetland up on the top portion of the site, up on the backside of Route 15, that also had turbid water in there too. So some significant concerns on the site.
You know, I find it interesting that, I think it was Scott mentioned that they had terminated the SWIP, that permit for that project. You know, because I mentioned, you know, that it's not just a courtesy to send us the, you know, a memo of the results of his inspection, that it's a requirement that he does the inspections for the SWIP, the stormwater permit. And he said, oh, that they're not using, that they've already terminated that permit. Well, the EPA would love to hear that they've terminated the permit when they've still got significant impacts to the environment.
Well, we should also ask a question about, Becky, you were very kind a minute ago when you said we were promised to receive their turbidity reports, but we haven't received them. We were lied to. We were specifically told that within a couple of days, we would have the turbidity reports, and that was 2 weeks ago at our meeting, and it was taped, where he specifically said, you will have them in a couple of days.
Well, and then all the discharges were clear too. That's the other statement that was made.
Yes.
At the last meeting.
And Becky pointed out there was 17 rain events over whatever period of time was that we should have gotten reported.
Yeah, it was about 14 or so over a quarter inch. Quarter inch is what they use for the SWIP reporting. So, right, I was able to look at the NOAA data and find in Worcester, that's what was reported.
But even the most recent one, up 2 inches, we got nothing. And yet, Halterman goes down and gets buried in his boots because of the silt.
Mess. The water was running clear, but I wasn't up on the lake and the places that you went, which clearly there was still.
Right, and right, I wasn't there when it was happening, but right, I could see that there was that evidence of that, so I do believe it's still coming off that site. I also believe that the sediment that's washed down through the stream into the pond is also probably being churned up too.
Right.
And.
So what are we gonna do about it?
Or silt.
I'm just wondering, if I may, when we referred this to council, do they have any obligation, since it's now in the hands of the legal teams, to conform at all to their enforcement order while it's being looked at? Because I do recall Scott affirming to us that he would get us those reports, but then we referred it to council. So does he have an obligation? I don't know. I find it difficult to get upset about something that if we referred it to council, that they no longer have an obligation to comply while that's.
Well, he still has an active permit with us.
Well,
So,
but the enforcement order is what is being called into question. And that was a specific item on the enforcement order. So I just, I would just be curious to know whether or not what their obligation is at this point while it's working through the court system.
Eric, if I may, the reports are important.
I'm not disagreeing
But they're
with you.
not
I'm just.
the most important part of this issue. The most important part of this issue is the pond is slowly filling in, and the stream has been totally destroyed by sand. And now Becky went up there this morning and saw BMPs blown out by stormwater.
Yeah.
And
I
that's the
understand.
enforcement that we should be taking
Yeah,
against.
and I understand all of that. I'm just curious if through our action of referring this to legal counsel, whether or not we have inadvertently handcuffed ourselves, right? And I don't know. I'm just asking the question because, that it would seem to me that the moment that the courts get involved, then we have relinquished our jurisdiction to some extent, or specifically over the enforcement order. Now, does that mean we can't bring another enforcement order if there's an additional violation? Maybe, I don't know the law well enough. I'm just, I find it hard to hold Scott accountable for something that he said he was going to do before we agreed 4-1 to bring the attorneys into play. And now, and I don't know how that fleshes out. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here.
yeah, and I don't,
Do we have them scheduled before us at the next meeting for anything? No, they're not, so we gotta find out what's going on with legal then.
Well, first of all, Jeff, is it still with the lawyer or has it been moved on?
I believe that Becky was gonna reach out to Alex Weissman
Yeah,
about it. I don't know that that's happened yet.
that's
No.
gotta be done.
I know.
Yeah, okay, well, that's where we're at right now.
Do we issue a new enforcement order because this is a new violation?
It is a violation.
It's a violation, we should at least,
It needs to
get
be
it in writing.
documented, I
Yeah,
think.
documented at least.
Yeah, so I think a formal enforcement letter should go out. I mean, it's not suggesting that we start finding them or anything for that, but I want it documented that, because It's
You're right, we're
just
documenting the
keeps going.
violation.
I think we should give them a date to fix those BMPs.
yeah, that should be done immediately.
I
I
think we-
mean,
yeah,
as soon as they're found, it should be
I-
fixed.
the documentation should be what has happened, what we've seen, and it should go to legal and to them.
And it should also go to DEP.
Yeah, that way, but just telling them what we're gonna do when we're gonna do whatever legal tells us we're gonna do.
And does it make the sense that the SWIP was shut down?
Yeah.
Also, to go back to Eric's comment, we've been dealing with this particular group of Ecotech on this project now for over 3 years. If he made a promise that he was going to give us the reports, and then he realized that because we were going to go to legal with it, that he didn't have to do the reports, don't you think he would have sent a note saying, I'm sorry, the reports will come after we hear from the legal resolution of this?
Well, if that was me, I would go under advisement of my attorney from that moment forward.
Right.
I would stop all communication with this. So I'm just saying, if that was me.
Me too. Yeah, I would,
So-
that'd be it. Becky? Anything else? No?
Mr. Tedeschi.
Well, all I would add is that, just so you're aware, that, I'm kind of behind on things in the office. There's a lot of things, responsibilities, so I'm trying to keep up with them, but that's why I haven't, gotten to all these things so far. Like, things that came in for this last meeting I was reviewing last week. So I'm trying to keep up, and just so you're aware too, Erin's almost out of hours, and she has a vacation coming up, so I'm gonna be by myself for most of the rest of the month, so, all right?
I think you're both doing great, and it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be a tough summer. With all the building that's gonna go, And it's good, you know, but it's gonna be a problem.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
In favor? David, you know, don't want to adjourn? Okay, just checking.
I couldn't get my arm up quick enough.
Plug this back in.
Anybody who wants to come in and sit
We
in
should
my
pass
chair
these
for a
down.
little while.